Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to go ahead and reconvene the meeting, the call to order. Do we need to go ahead and do the roll call? Yeah, okay. Ms. Bernardo, please.
Allison Leggett. Here. Augustin Cervantes. Kathy Grisha.
Here.
Katrina Chakowski.
Here.
Patrick McKee.
Here.
Bob Fraley.
Here.
Alan Howless.
Here.
Mike Hillis. Marissa Luna Lopez.
Here.
Jason Lee. Gerard Morrison.
Yeah.
Kevin Taylor.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you. Just as a reminder, especially those who are viewing online, we had an 8:30 item 23 on the agenda item that has been tabled, and we'll come back to that at another day. So we are ready to do item 24. Item 24 is a report of actions taken to address stipulations by California State Polytechnic University, Humboldt. Consultant William Hattrick will present the item, and joining him today are institutional representatives Dr. Justice Ortega, Associate Dean, and Dr. Chris Hopper, Education Accreditation Coordinator. Anyone need to recuse himself? I see none. Mr. Hattrick, please begin. Okay, anybody have trouble sleeping last night? You wake up in the middle of the night and start eating? There is a medical term for that. You know what it's called? Insomnia.
That's a good one.
Come on, I thought. No, No, that I had in the. That's in the back of the brain. I pull it out when we need it. So, oh, there we go. Okay. Great. So I believe we have Dr. Ortega and Dr. Hopper with us.
We actually have my other colleagues as well have been able to join us with their schedules permitted. We have Dr. Shauna Young, Dean of the College of Professional Studies, and we have the two co-chairs of School of Education, Dr. James Woglam and Dr. Libby Miller. So we have, I think, 5 of us here representing Cal Poly Humboldt.
Great. Thank you so much. The more the merrier. Thank you for introducing them. You're certainly welcome to be here. So, Mr. Hattrick, we're all set? You ready to begin?
Yes, I'm ready. Are we all ready? We're ready. Okay. Good morning, committee members. This agenda item provides an update on the actions taken by Cal Poly Humboldt to address stipulations resulting from their November 2022 site visit. A 6-month report was presented to the COA at the June 2023 meeting. The Unit Assessment Committee at Cal Poly Humboldt developed a plan to ensure that the stipulations were fully addressed and that a plan is in place to sustain these actions. Beginning on page 3 of the item, you'll find a summary of the actions and evidence that were provided to staff by the institution, and how they're addressing each of those stipulations, which came from Common Standards 3 and 4. Related to Common Standard 3, the following procedures are now in place. All programs are documenting their procedures to select, prepare, and support site-based supervisors, and consistent support is being provided to the university supervisors through ongoing meetings and group norming of expectations. There's also an assessment that's been operationalized to evaluate the site-based supervisor's effectiveness. And lastly, the unit created a cohesive plan to help each individual program evaluate its clinical practice requirements, which previously didn't exist at the unit level, just at the individual program level. Related to Common Standard 4, the units developed a common annual reporting template for all programs, and then based on these reports from the past 2 academic years, the programs will use this information in establishing their continuous improvement plans. Additionally, the Institutional Research Office at Cal Poly Humboldt is creating a dashboard for each program to access data that is relevant to their effectiveness. And the Registrar's Office is creating audit reports that will assist staff in checking a candidate's progress towards finishing credential requirements. So again, sort of at that whole unit level as opposed to just the individual programs. Based on discussions with Cal Poly Humboldt and the evidence provided for the 6-month and then this final report, it is staff's recommendation to remove the stipulations related to Common Standards 3 and 4 and change the accreditation status to full accreditation. And I did want to give the team from Cal Poly the opportunity to add any contextual information or just anything else related to the stipulations that I may have missed in my brief summary of that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hattrick. So representatives from Cal Poly, Humboldt, anything you'd like to add and offer for us would be appreciated.
I think William did a really excellent job of summarizing the work that we've done in the last 6 months. We've had I think, really meaningful opportunity to collaborate with our unit to revise our placement setting assessments and the process through which we affect them. So now that we've implemented that new process, we are scheduled on February 8th to review our newest placement assessment data and look at that fall semester in a really thoughtful and critical way to see how we can improve our processes. We've worked consistently across the unit to develop a more coherent assessment plan that allows for annual data collection and review by the unit. We have had the opportunity to work to maintain consistent cross-unit planning towards structural cohesion, which is really something that's, I think been exciting and meaningful for us to think of our assessment unit as a collaborative community of practice, thinking about how we can work to make our program better. And we've been able to work across the university with our Office of Institutional Research and Records and our registrars to improve and our newly appointed community outreach coordinator to improve our data collection processes so that our reporting and our future assessment of our unit can be more robust, thoughtful, and detailed. So I think we've had the opportunity over the last 6 months to do some significant work to improve our overall structure towards better teacher preparation.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the comments. Any other comment wish to be offered by Humboldt? All right, seeing none and hearing none, members of the committee, it's an opportunity for you to ask questions or offer any comments. Co-Chair Tchaikovsky and then Member Taylor.
So I saw that you identified program completion as one of the data points. Is there anything else that you can say now will be included in this new dashboard that you're developing? So information that is useful for you to track. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There's a number of data points that were distributed through a number of organizations across our university that are requested and required by, say, the Title II report or reports to the Chancellor's office that were in different spaces across our university. And we're hoping to centralize a lot of that work so that we can potentially do those reports faster, more accurately, and also have a better sense of who our students are and how we can better serve them. But I think in the future, as we have access to this data more regularly, I think we can use it as improvement management data, thinking about how we can make sure our processes are more meaningful and better serve our students.
But back to my question, what data are included in those? Like a Title II report, can you help us understand what information you'll have access to that you currently don't?
Sorry, yeah. We have demographic data that's not necessarily kept within our the records that we would ask of students in the past as they were applying. They would come to their applications, but then go to the registrar's office, and that would necessarily be kept within the School of Education. It also allows us to think about where our students are going through the process of, in combination with our placement assessment, where they are being educated. So, we're thinking about overall what the community of educators engaging with our students are. So then thinking about those interrelationships and, how we can improve the decisions we make about where students are placed where the best places for students to engage with to improve their their understanding of what it is to be a teacher, and better kind of track our entire process so that it's more clearly visible and all available in sort of one space that we can look at together.
And I can add on to my colleague. I think our demographic data looking at candidates entering the program, exiting the program, as well as the stages where they might be leaving the program along the way without being recommended for a credential across all of our programs is really allowing us to see trends and where we're meeting the needs of candidates and where we're not meeting the needs of candidates. And so I think that as we've implemented this data dashboard, as we have started to implement and we're moving towards building a more robust data dashboard, the demographic data is information that we were severely needing to track and to monitor across all of our programs.
So by demographic data, you're talking about entry and departure times. Is there anything else in the demographic data that are valuable to you?
Gender, race, ethnicity, undergraduate programs coming into our, where our candidates are coming from, content areas. We've specifically collected data looking at pathways getting into our program to better understand how we're best recruiting and where we're really seeing robust changes in numbers of candidates that we're able to recruit and move through the program.
Cool. And have you thought about how to present this or share this with other people? I recognize that's not part of the stipulations, but I was curious. Once you have assembled your dashboard and you've collected these data that you just described, do you have any plans for publishing your findings or sharing that with advisory groups or anybody like that?
We'll continue to host our P16 K-12 partnership, and our K-12 partners are really are always interested in filling spaces in classrooms. They're also really interested in teachers from our local communities who will stay and teach in our local community. And so I think that's a great place to share this work. We were able to share a little bit of this work at CCTE with the larger state, and I believe we'll continue to connect with that network as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Taylor.
I'd like to commend my colleagues at Cal Poly Humboldt for their work on this. And for the record, I want to state there are three wonderful institutions in the state of California called Cal Poly. I happen to work for one of them, but the three institutions operate entirely separately, so I see no conflict of interest, given that I work at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And we're talking about the wonderful work being done at Cal Poly Humboldt. And I say that for the record because I realize there may be people listening virtually and tracking and that don't understand that they are three. The third one, for the record, is Cal Poly Pomona, and they are three totally separate institutions.
Thank you for clarifying. So, Member Taylor, which one's best of the three?
That's a great question.
Oh, you're in the right state for that kind of talk. The right city, right politician. Thank you. Any other members? Commissioner Davis.
Good morning, and thank you for the work that you all did. It's a tremendous feat to move to Canvas. I'm just going to say that because at Stanford we use Canvas, and it is the most confusing thing if it is not organized well. So I'm in the process of helping them to organize their lives there. But I'm going to say that you all gathering data for your data dashboard is an ambitious endeavor, and I commend that. We've talked about that many times around this commission table. And as you all are tracking when teachers are leaving your program, I think that is one of the big mysteries that we grapple with when we look at data here, and we're trying to figure out, for example, what happens to Black women. When they leave programs, they just disappear off the map. And we are baffled every time we get a data set that says students are leaving, and then we look at the demographic breakdown, and oftentimes they are people of color, and no one knows where they've left in the middle of a program, or maybe they've completed a program but couldn't pass an assessment. So you invest all the time and money, and you then have to go into a different field because of a hiccup along the road. I'm hoping ambitiously with your data that when you're tracking, that filling those holes means that you might be able to attract some of those candidates back to the program so that they can complete. So I kudos to you. And then also, just a shameless plug, in the future, when you want to share that data, please share it with the commission. We'd like to know.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Davis. Any other further comments or questions from committee members? All right, this is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Taylor.
I move that we remove the stipulations for Cal Poly Humboldt and move them to full accreditation.
All right, thank you. So moved. Is there a second? Second by Member Cracia. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you for your work, and we look forward to continue work down the road. Thank you for joining us, all the members from Cal State Humboldt, or Cal Poly Humboldt. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Hattrick, as well. Have a good day. Thank you. So item 25, do we have representatives from Chino Valley Unified School District available? That is the, so item 25 is a report of the accreditation team to Chino Valley Unified School District, and consultant Lynn Larson will introduce the item. She is joined by team lead Valerie Saylor and institutional representatives Dr. Norm Enfield, superintendent, Teresa Shockley, induction program coordinator, and Leah Fellows, associate superintendent of human resources. Are there any recusals? We have one recusal, Patrick McKee. Any others? All right, seeing Dr. Larson, old friend, good to see you. Why don't you go ahead and you may begin your presentation.
Good morning, COA members, sitting on the opposite side of the desk from you for a change. It's a pleasure to see you all again. This is the site visit report for the Chino Valley Unified School District Teacher Induction Program. The virtual site visit took place from November 13 to 15, 2023, and a total of 92 interviews were completed with key constituents. The site visit proceeded in accordance with all normal accreditation protocols. It was truly a pleasure to work with everyone at Chino Valley Unified, especially Teresa Shockley, the induction program coordinator. She was extremely thorough and thoughtful in her preparation for the site visit. I enjoyed working with her over the last year and could clearly see her passion for and dedication to the induction program. Everyone we spoke with confirmed her outstanding leadership for this program. It's my pleasure to introduce the following people who have joined us from the district: Dr. Norm Enfield, the superintendent, Leah Fellows, the Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, and Teresa Shockley, the Induction Program Coordinator. Also joining us today is the Site Visits Team Lead, Valerie Saylor, Coordinator for New Teacher Development at Bakersfield City School District. Valerie was an incredible team lead who did an outstanding job guiding the team expertly through this virtual visit. I'll now turn it over to Valerie, who will present the finding and the team's accreditation recommendation.
Good morning. I apologize, I just lost my script here. Good morning, COA members. The Chino Valley Unified School District Teacher Induction Program visit followed the standard protocols for a virtual site visit. I would like to echo Lynn Larson in commending Teresa Shockley and the district in their preparation for the site visit. I would also like to take this opportunity to express appreciation for the excellent work of the other accreditation site team members, Michelle Resendez and Enrico Bischoco, and the fantastic professional support the team received from state consultant Lynn Larson. The team conducted interviews and reviewed the documents noted in the report. Lynn Larson and I conducted an in-person visit with the program coordinator, Teresa Shockley, for the 2-month out meeting. Based upon the evidence reviewed, the team found that common standards 1, 2, and 3 were met with concerns, and common standards 4 and 5 were met. The team did find that our mentors and candidates had lots of positive things to say about their program. The concerns around Common Standard 1, institutional infrastructure to support educator preparation, Common Standard 2, candidate recruitment and support, and Common Standard 3, fieldwork and clinical practice, were in relation to the ability of the unit to fully support the program in implementing the induction program around the areas of providing specific feedback to mentors, having a system to retain mentors who demonstrate excellence in their role, and the support of struggling induction candidates. Interviews confirmed that mentors receive trend data, but not feedback on their specific work, and confirmed that this is primarily a resource issue around the time and staff to provide that feedback to mentors and to use data in the decisions for the retention of mentors. While a system of support for struggling candidates is clearly outlined in the induction handbook, there was no evidence from documentation or interviews that that stated system was being implemented in the program. Based upon evidence reviewed, all program standards were met, with the exception of Program Standard 6, which was met with concerns, as interviews and document review confirmed that formative feedback was not being provided to mentors. Based upon this evidence, the team recommends accreditation with stipulations.
All right, thank you. We now invite institutional representatives to briefly comment about the visit. We remind you it's not a time to dispute the team's report, but rather provide any thoughts that you may have about the visit itself. And feel free to chime in.
So you're on mute.
Yeah, exactly.
There, sorry, I apologize. The team visit was very much appreciated. The team was gracious and supportive, and Dr. Larson's been amazing, providing me support throughout the whole thing. I recognize the stipulations and have already started to work on remediating them, putting the information and the documentation up on the accreditation website so that it's there for anybody to look at and to be, open and transparent about it. I've engaged a number of my lead mentors and a couple of kind of key mentors to help me with developing processes to be able to provide candidate support for struggling candidates and methods, for that. And also, we've been also working with Go React and a group of other induction programs to see how they're doing feedback for their mentors using the Go React video feedback. So we've got starting to put some things in place. We have to have the time to follow through with those actions and continue to grow those right now. And Ms. Fellows and Dr. Enfeld have been very supportive in helping me provide feedback to me on how I can actually implement these things, with resources from the district to take stuff off of my plate so that I have more time to be able to, other stuff off my plate to be able to have more time to be able to focus on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shockley. We appreciate the comments. Any other representative wish to make any comment? All right, if not, any comments or questions from the committee members? Co-Chair Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, thank you for being here and for sharing your work with us. I think it's an interesting challenge to provide feedback to mentors, especially when you have teacher leadership, right? And I think using video is a really interesting idea. SIBME is another alternate platform similar to Go React. And I'm just wondering, how do you envision using that video to provide feedback to mentors? Are you still kind of just getting started and thinking about that? Or are you thinking you might video record the conferences between mentors and candidates and then allow mentors to have a chance to kind of unpack their coaching practice? What are you thinking in terms of using that type of documentation?
But in talking to the lead mentors, what we did is, because we have about 65 mentors, and all the mentors are divided up amongst about 9 lead mentors. So each of the lead mentors is responsible for a subgroup, of a subset of mentors. And so what we've done is, I talked to them about it in December after their site visit, and we went into further detail at my meeting with them last week, where the mentors will have an ILP and they'll have to set their own goals. And there's a rubric they set their own goals. It's kind of a parallel structure to the co-assessment as to what they do with the teachers, but on a smaller scale. But each of the mentors is going to videotape themselves having a mentoring conversation, reflective conversation with their candidate, and then a 10-minute, I said 10 minutes. And because I think that's a snapshot, a snippet that is an appropriate piece of time. And so taking that and then uploading it to their lead mentors, Go React. And then the lead mentor, using a rubric, will provide feedback to the individual mentors in their subgroup. And then the lead mentors will do the same thing, except they'll upload theirs to me, to my Go React classroom course, so that I can provide the mentoring feedback to the lead mentors using a rubric. So that's kind of the model. And we are starting to, I told them I wanted by the end of February for them to be able to have that done or uploaded anyway. So I think that gives them enough time. And then we'll be able to provide feedback. But also, I've met with all the candidates and actually trying to get more quantifiable responses from them as I meet with them individually using a Google form. And I ask them questions like, how do you meet with your mentor? Do you meet, A, B, C, D, or, different scenarios? And then also on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel you're doing in the program? And I've shared this data with the district administrators during our HR admin team meetings. And I'm documenting that too, so that I'm providing feedback to the district on how the candidates are doing. And then also with the candidates, having I'd say it looks almost like a report card, but it's not, but data tracking or candidate progress monitoring tool, to where I can look and see and track the candidates. It's more of I don't say concrete, it's more of it's more than just seeing their work in Google Classroom. It's a tracking document, but being able to do that. And at the end of each inquiry cycle, in addition to touching base with them personally, but being able to provide feedback to them, then saying, you finished your cycle 1, and then being able to catch people who are falling through the gaps or not progressing in induction or in the classroom on a tighter basis. It's tightening up and providing tools and documentation that we're actually doing that, rather than more the mentors telling me and me taking notes kind of a thing, but being able to actually have a systematic way of going through stuff and documenting it on a candidate progress monitoring tool.
Well, I think that sounds awesome. And just given what you just said, you have already addressed the stipulation. And if I weren't super interested in hearing the fruits of your labor, I would suggest that perhaps that stipulation just be removed, because what you just explained is pretty remarkable, pretty cool. I like that whole mentor network thing that you described, where it kind of culminates with you, and you're gonna assemble just this incredible body of material that you can use for training. You can now have excerpts, you have exemplars, you have good enough, not good enough that you can contrast, and it's awesome. So good on you. Nice thinking. You said December. Wow, you don't waste time. Thank you.
I was rather not happy with the fact I try to do a good job, and knowing that these were gaps, and the site visit was an impetus to get on it. You know what I mean? And to that sort of a thing.
All right, thank you both. Any other comments or questions from any committee members? Okay, this is an action item. The one thing I would say is that if there was going to be any consideration of a motion to include removal of stipulations, I would request that we would see that in writing, as opposed to, I mean, I think the verbal discussion here is useful, but I would just request that that would be something that we can actually see as a report. Not that we don't trust what's occurring, but just to be consistent with all the reports that we have and information that's provided, it would then become part of the written record from which we can then act.
No, I understand. I also think that that there needs to be time to implement. Do you know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
Like kind of what Valerie was saying. It's in the handbook, but they didn't see it in action. So I asked for a little bit of time so that I can completely, thoroughly implement it and then provide you the feedback and data from the implementation process.
And it sounds like you're well on your way to doing that. Yeah, so just need a little more time to compile that, and then at that point. Ms. Sullivan?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some additional, reassurance, I guess, to the COA, also the institution and the consultant, that the stipulation says that within 1 year they'll do these things.
Right.
But if there are some things that are accomplished a little bit sooner, and the consultant and the administrators feel like it's worthwhile, the staff could bring something before that year and ask that some of these stipulations be removed. So you don't have to wait a year. The institution doesn't have to wait a year.
So,
we can work with staff on that.
So anytime within the next 12 months, essentially, that it wishes to be brought forward, it could be brought forward. Okay.
Yeah.
But I would say, though, that within a year, this team is going to have some incredible stuff together. And one of the charges that we have received in the past is to identify exemplary programs and what makes them exemplary. So, I mean, perhaps we could capitalize on the 1 year window and kind of think about what you've described in terms of formative feedback for mentors. This could be a way to build a little case of exemplary practice. And maybe there's an incentive because you're kind of already on the docket. And, within a year, I think whatever's in your best interest should be what we advocate for. But we could learn a lot from what you've already described.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so there is an option for the motion before us. Anyone wish to make a motion? Member Hallis.
I move we accept the team report and the recommendation of accreditation with stipulations for Chino Valley Unified School District.
All right, so moved. Is there a second? Second by Member Hillis. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. So congratulations. We appreciate the fact that you recognize the stipulation, that you are already taking steps and actions to ensure that that's going to be removed. So anytime between now and the next year, we look forward to, again, reading the follow-up, and good luck with the program. Again, we do appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Have a great day. And thank you also, Dr. Larson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 26. Item 26 is the discussion of the third quarterly report for University of Redlands. Administrator Aaron Sullivan and consultant Rosemary Wren will introduce the item. They are joined by institutional representatives Yesenia Jorgensen, Assistant Dean of Operations and Analytics. Are there any recusals?
I'll be recusing.
One more recusal, Patrick McKee. Yeah, there you go. Ms. Sullivan, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you, and good morning, Rosemary. So this is the third quarterly report from the University of Redlands. I just want to be clear, the University of Redlands was required to hold a revisit. We are doing that a little bit later in March. So this is the third and final quarterly report that you'll see. The next report will be the report from their site revisit at your April meeting, anyway, at your next meeting after that. Sorry. So I've brought you information from their first two quarterly reports. Those were linked in the item. Also, the link to their evidence was there as well. So just to briefly or not so briefly kind of go over what they've done to date, I just want to acknowledge the institution for being responsive and timely. I do also want to recognize that at the last meeting, there had been, at the time of printing of the report, there were some things that I did not have access to, that staff did not have access to, that the institution had gotten us access to, just not in time, like so that I could see it, but not in time to report on it. So since then, obviously, we looked at some of those resources as well. So just to go over the stipulations quickly and kind of just talk about what the institution's done thus far. So for stipulation number 1, the team had found some insufficient evidence that candidates were getting the 200 hours of early field experiences and all that encompasses for their education specialist candidates. So the institution began meeting immediately to evaluate their course syllabi, to create, update, and deploy a tracking sheet to be used to ensure that those experiences are being tracked, that the 200 hours are happening, that they're happening in accordance with the standards, so across disability areas, including gen ed settings, et cetera. They began meeting with their LEA partners to I lost my train of thought. They began meeting with their LEA partners to strengthen those relationships so that those partners also understood what their SPED candidates needed to be able to do in their early fieldwork assignments. So they involved the other constituents that are really part of their program in deploying this. And so a lot of evidence has been provided. The evidence looks strong, but the revisit will be the opportunity now for the ed specialist team member to go in and actually see how these things are deployed and that they are being deployed, appropriately and accurately. So there'll be plenty of interviews with faculty, with the LEA members, and with the current candidates so that we can actually triangulate that these things are all in practice. The next stipulation was that the institution provide evidence that they are providing opportunities for their candidates to demonstrate knowledge of the disability areas across ed specialists. Again, this is an area where they went back and reevaluated their course syllabi to make sure that things were there to improve the syllabi and the course assignments anywhere that were needed to, and to redeploy those. So we did receive those syllabi in addition to a table that is really a side-by-side, sort of a secondary way to show where each of those things is occurring within the syllabi. And again, the ed specialist team member, the team actually at this point has access to all of this evidence, and they started digging in about a week ago to evaluate all of these things and to start developing their questions for the site visit. So the site visit will bear out, how well these things have actually been deployed and are being followed up on. For stipulation C, the team was unable to find sufficient evidence at the site visit that coursework and field experiences were providing these multiple opportunities for candidates to be introduced to practice, and to be assessed on the TPEs for ed specialists. Particularly, the team was looking for better evidence that physical and multiple disabilities were being offered as opportunities, and that candidates were being able to have experiences to use strength-based and functional ecological assessments across classroom and non-classroom contexts in order to help students be introduced to the core and standards-based curriculum. So the institution, again, the site visit was late last February. They began meeting in June, and over the summer met again with their course. This is a common theme, met with their faculty to look at their course syllabi, to make sure and actually map where are all the TPEs occurring in the program, and to fill in any gaps that were existing within the course syllabi. The institution sent their folks from both this program and the PPS program, which we'll talk about later because those were the two programs really that had the stipulations, to this California Educator Preparation Innovation Collaborative, or CalEPIC, for some additional faculty development and some assistance in really tracking where those TPEs can be really well integrated into the arc of the program. And then they developed some rubrics that they have put on their institutional learning management system. I believe they use Canvas, which a lot of you are familiar with, so that information is clear and it's available to all of their faculty, and then can be made available to students as well as needed. They have provided the key syllabi needed to evidence that this is occurring, as well as a course matrix, which if you're in a preliminary program, you're familiar with that course matrix. So again, this is a piece of evidence that our SPED team member is currently reviewing, and anywhere where we have questions, we'll have an opportunity to provide feedback to the institution before or during that revisit. Now moving on to the next few stipulations are really about their school counseling program. So again, very similarly related to the SPED program insofar that the PPS reviewer was just really unable to see where all of certain pieces of the standards were actually being implemented. So in this particular case for D, the team found not enough evidence that the program was providing preparation for their field experience supervisors, so that candidates were being supported in the way that they're meant to be in accordance with the standards. So the program coordinator for the school counseling program completed the California Association of School Counselors School Counseling Supervision Training in order to learn some additional information there. The site where the candidates are placed started including some additional training resources. The institution created some new site supervisor training materials, including an 8-hour comprehensive training package that they developed in collaboration with the site supervisors, and an additional video presentation that covers sort of general and program training requirements. The resources, again, which were developed collaboratively with site supervisors and program partners, was intended to be deployed this spring. It has been, and again, so that'll be something that the school counseling reviewer can follow up on at the revisit. Finally, the institution was asked to please identify that appropriate activities for practica and fieldwork hours were occurring for their school counseling candidates. The institution developed, similarly to their SPED program, a practica hour training log for their school counseling program and for those candidates. This log in particular specifies that for not only faculty but also for the students in the program, that 80 of the 100 hours of practica activities are occurring across the coursework, and it identifies where that's happening, and then explains again to candidates that the remaining 20 hours are going to consist of approved activities. And in order to get these activities approved, the institution has made a list of appropriate activities available to the candidates. The candidates select from those, they put them on their log, they get them approved, they go out and do them. So the candidates are getting more and better clear guidance on what these activities should be, and the institution has an opportunity to clearly and carefully track those activities, so candidates are meeting their requirements but also not spending time doing things that won't count toward their credential. They did deploy this, but they found that the platform that they had used initially last fall wasn't working well for everyone, so they've just moved it onto a new platform for this spring. So we expect to be able to hear great things about that at the revisit. And then finally, the team did find insufficient evidence that the coursework for school counseling was providing candidates those multiple opportunities to be introduced to practice and be assessed on the school counseling performance expectations. So these faculty in the school counseling program also went to that Cal Epic training, got some additional tools for mapping the SCPEs across their program, updating course syllabi, and making all of that very clear to their candidates as well. So the school counseling team member will have an opportunity to talk with faculty, program directors, and current candidates about how all of this is happening when we go for the revisit in 2 months.
And scene. Thanks for the great report, Erin. Appreciate it. Ms. Wren, any wish to offer comments at this point, right? No? Okay. So this is an opportunity for the institution to offer any comments. Let me just, my script disappeared. Yeah, I'm sorry. So any comments that you wish to offer for us? Yesenia Jorgensen.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. I also want to thank our review team, Ms. Sullivan and Ms. Wren, for their continued support over the last few months. I would like to share some high-level highlights. Our faculty and staff have done tremendous work to ensure that our programs are aligned to the standards, are in the best interest of our candidates. We did hold our partner convening in December, and it was a success. The convening afforded us the opportunity to engage with with our partners in meaningful dialogue related to field work and practica models, as well as obtaining feedback related to the challenges that our partnering districts are facing that would better help us align our programs to meet their needs. As Ms. Sullivan shared, the PPS site supervisor training models have been deployed, but include training that include models of supervision, school counseling performance expectations, videos explaining to the site supervisors what to expect from our candidates, and the training that they've received thus far. We also included fieldwork and supervision requirements, and then technical training on how we keep track of our candidate hours. Ms. Sullivan also shared that we have provided evidence of addressing each stipulation, but the last thing that I wanted to share was that we continue to make strides towards improving the candidate experience by making sure that requirements are clear and easy to follow. And other than some logistical details, we're ready to welcome the review team for the focused revisit in March. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jorgensen. Any comments or questions from committee members? Co-Chair Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Sullivan, and thank you for being here to update us on your work. I'm kind of just curious regarding the Cal Epic infusion of grant money and whether that was a catalyst in helping you address the stipulations. Can you comment at all on how you have used those additional resources and how they have potentially supported your work? Because obviously we're all interested in the positive effect of grants. Thank you.
Sure, that's a great question. But we found that there was a lot of overlap between the framework of the Cal Epic grant initiative and the performance expectations and mission of the commission. So sometimes it was, I guess, admittedly difficult to draw the line as to where the Cal Epic initiatives begin and where the CTC, standards did, because there's so much overlap. But the resources allowed us to have events such as like the partner convening to welcome our partners and under the umbrella of Cal Epic, as well as curricular revisions that also align with that initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comments, questions? Member Morrison.
Good morning. I'd just like to thank first Erin on such an extensive report and the team. I particularly enjoyed the report, the way it presented clearly, and the stipulations, the feedback, the responses in those boxes, and then being able to link on the evidence for each stipulation. So well done for such a thorough report and obvious efforts that you've been making over the last year to address these stipulations. So thank you.
Thank you. Member Taylor.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo the comments already made. The effort put into and the work put into addressing the concerns is impressive, and the report is wonderfully written and presented. Congratulations to everybody.
Hey, thank you. Any further comments or questions? This is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Morrison. Okay. And just for clarification, it would be the staff report. Yep.
Staff
Yep.
report. I was making sure to say team and stuff.
I know. It's all right. I get you.
I move that we accept staff third quarter report from the University of Redlands.
And their recommendation? Yeah, okay. To accept it. Thank you. And Member Taylor, is that you're the second? All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. Jorgensen. Thank you so much for your efforts and for joining us here today. Thank you. And thank you also, Ms. Sullivan and Ms. Wren.
Thank you,
Thank
Yesenia.
Yeah. Have a great day. Sure. And we're going to take just about a 1-minute pause to stand and stretch. We need to get a PowerPoint hooked up for the presentation. So feel free to stand up, but just stay near. So is everybody, just as we reconvene, wait, I got to do this. There you go. As we reconvene, just invite you to the committee members to please to go ahead and log in to the commission's website so that we can see the PowerPoint presentation. And then once you do log in, be sure your speaker is off, or your mic is off. Right. So it's available on the screens throughout the room here, so yeah, that'd be the easiest way just to look at that. So we good to go? I'm just waiting to be sure they're good. Yeah, we're ready to go. So we're item 27 is a discussion of the first quarterly report for Monterey County Office of Education. Consultants Dr. Sarah Solari Colombini and Steph Morgado will present the item. They are joined by institutional representatives Dr. Deneen Gus, Superintendent, Dr. Karen Lewis, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Marlena Milazzo, Director of Leadership and School Systems, and Claudia Morales, Education Administrator. Anyone need to recuse himself? All right, seeing none, Dr. Colombini, would you please begin?
Certainly. I'm glad there's the backup plan. So excuse me as I go off my script here. So good morning. Today I'm presenting the first quarterly report for the Monterey County Office of Education. In October of 2023, a site visit was held, and the COA granted Monterey County Office of Education with the status of accreditation with probationary stipulations, with the requirement that the institution provide quarterly reports and that a revisit be conducted. Notification of the COA action from Commission staff was sent to the Monterey County Office of Education regarding all of the actions taken by the COA on November 2nd of 2023. The quarterly reports are scheduled to be presented at this meeting, the March meeting, the June meeting, with a revisit scheduled for October 7th through the 9th of this year, 2024. The purpose of these reports is for the COA, this body, to determine if the institution has made sufficient progress in addressing the stipulations. So this is what you will determine this morning. There's not a staff recommendation. This is a decision for this body. As a reminder, there were 3 program standards that were not met. 1 program standard that was met with concerns for the CASC, the Clear Administrative Services Credential Program. And there was 1 program standard that was not met, and 4 program standards that were met with concerns for the teacher induction program. In addition, there were 4 common standards that were not met and 1 common standard that was met with concerns. This program report was presented at that October COA meeting. The site visit team struggled to find evidence through documentation, interviews, and the institution's website to determine that the educator preparation programs in the institution were aligned to the 2016 standards. When 2022 and 23 candidate work to develop ILPs aligned to the CSTPs were provided to the team during the course of the site visit, the work did not align to the CSTPs for teacher induction. So interviews with candidates from both programs offered did not provide any clarity about what the candidates were expected to do, or that they knew of any process instituted for or by their respective programs to verify that the candidates had met the standards. So that was the team's challenge. So for the first quarterly report submission that's in front of you, Monterey County Office has compiled a report and a table of artifacts. Staff directed the Monterey County Office of Education to provide evidence that shows implementation of the standard to address the stipulations. We shared with the institution that the importance of conveying the work that has been done, meaning the actions that have been taken between the site visit and now. So when I say we, I mean Steph Morgado and myself have been working with the institution since November weekly. We've been meeting with them. So you'll notice that they've provided a narrative report and then a stipulations table. And that in the stipulations table, there are several links provided to, and they refer to this in their narrative as template, their evidence of, their templates basically that identify processes. But at this point in time, the evidence has not yet, there's no evidence that's been submitted that confirms that there's implementation of the processes. So I'm going to now turn this over to the representatives from Monterey County Office of Education so that they can share with you the actions that have been taken since their site visit. So.
And just as we do this, we want to mention that we understand you do have the prepared presentation, and we're asking to be limited to 6 minutes, right? Okay. And then it's not necessarily a time to argue the result, but basically just discuss what steps you have taken. All right. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And we very much regret that we were not able to be here at the last meeting, but please know we take this situation very seriously. I'm Dr. Deneen Gus, Monterey County Superintendent of Schools, and I'm here today with our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Karen Lewis. Our induction programs are important to us as our students and our families served by our educators and our educational leaders deserve the best, and we're doing everything within our power to make the changes needed so that we are operating a high-quality program. We've made some changes in program leadership, and our program staff have worked collaboratively with CTC team members to streamline communications, begin addressing the areas of need, and to ensure a relevant and high-quality program that's research-based and is obviously using the current induction standards. We are joining you today to give you an update on the progress we've made thus far. We hope to provide clarity regarding some of the questions that were raised during the visit and to address all areas that we are engaging in for continuous improvement. So please know we're taking our situation of probationary status very seriously because we, just like you, want to make sure that we are offering a high-quality program. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Lewis, who will give you the update on the actions taken thus far. And again, thank you for this opportunity. Dr. Lewis?
Good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to echo Dr. Gus's sentiment and just say how appreciative we are to be here with you today. And we do understand the gravity of the situation. I'm going to try to be very succinct and really focus on the actions that have been taken so far in quarter one. And I recognize that we could have a Q&A just following that. So our team prepared the action items kind of organized into some of the areas that we approached them as we were moving through the process together. So the first area that we began to address was communication and collaboration. For us, we think in Monterey County, our relationships are our greatest asset, and we are typically our process is when there's a challenge or something that comes up that needs to be solved is to bring those people together who are closest to that work so that we can begin processing that the continuous improvement efforts together. Our first action was to bring our own team together immediately to say what happened, right, and to really address some of the elements that came out of the report. We appreciate the detail provided by the site visitation team and really use this as an opportunity to redesign and move forward with a continuous improvement process. So we brought our team together. As Dr. Gus mentioned, we did actually have some modifications to our team structure, and we've been able to extend capacity. We have a strategic improvement team within our division, and so we've integrated some elements of that team within this program. And so I hope you'll see those elements as we're moving forward in the future quarters. We also sent out written communication to all of our constituents. And as a part of that written communication, we really invited them to be a part of this process with us. Please come forward. We welcome you to share and serve in any kind of leadership capacity that they feel like they're able to do at that time. And so that communication went out. We connected immediately with our partners from community colleges and with the local university. We work with them on many other projects and programs, and so bringing them in immediately was something that was important to us. And then also increasing our individual meetings with external partners. So right away reaching out to our school districts and employers and making sure that they were feeling like they were having the success that they wanted to have, and did they have any immediate input that we could use to move forward right away. So we also increased our collaboration with our organizations across the state that are providing induction programs. We collaborate often with them, and so we had robust conversations about improvement opportunities and a lot of different change ideas that came forward. So the next area we'd like to talk about is program feedback and evaluation. This was an area that was extremely important to us right away. In the past, we had a thriving educator preparedness advisory committee. It was something that was sort of, a thing that across the county everyone knew about, and was a very positive implementation. And over the course of the pandemic, we did see some challenges, a lot of transition in positions, a lot of trauma, and various needs that were taking place. And that team waned down quite a bit, we will say. And it was our goal this year to really bring that roster back to full capacity and have a robust offering. And we're excited to say that we're at that place. We just had our recent meeting on January 17th, and it was very positive, and some really good conversations about how we might address, some of the opportunities for our candidates moving forward. The other thing that was really important to us, we typically have done session feedbacks and surveys and things like that, but this year we thought, in light of everything that was happening, we really wanted to add focus groups. So that was an immediate action that we took. We have an external evaluator working on that with us. She's fantastic. She has research background and understands and knows how to compile data and reports that we would need to be able to really evaluate where we're at. And so she's just concluding that process right now, and we look forward to the qualitative data coming forward from her. We have also increased our one-to-one meetings, our office hours, and opportunities for people to come in and speak to us one-on-one. We've had a lot of people take us up on that, and sometimes it's just a personal need that they have, and sometimes they really are coming in with some really useful input, and we appreciate both of those things, right? We're there for all of those things as described, so that has been really exciting. This area I know in particular was of interest to the commission and for our site visitation team related to things that they saw. So there's a lot of things related to the stipulations. I just want to come out and say that we recognize that we did not provide what we needed to provide during the program review process. And that's something that is really important to us. And so much of our efforts have been to make sure that that evidence is there for the visitation team. And then, as Sarah mentioned, for us as we're moving forward to be able to demonstrate the implementation efforts that are connected to those items. But I know there were some items that were of particular interest, so I wanted to address those today. The first one was just the research-based model that the program was developed on. We worked together with our EPAC team probably about 5 years ago, and that was the last time that we did any kind of a real redesign of this program. And we had our whole focus was on how do we shift from theory to practice? How do we take the knowledge and skills and things that are gained in the preliminary coursework and really move that into practice and have that coaching and mentoring aligned to what was happening with that? So we did go in and update that program rationale to really include those research-based references, but more importantly, we've included it into the processes we're using now so that as we're moving into our professional sessions, we're addressing and making those connections for educators in terms of where that research is coming from, why it matters, and how it will help us to make better decisions as we're moving forward for our students and for our school programs. So the other question that came up was related to coaching. We've been implementing cognitive coaching for many years. I know that is a highly acclaimed research-based program and used by many of our induction programs across the state. We primarily use cognitive coaching as like our foundational or base model for coaching. As coaches are coming in, making sure that they have some of the skills that are needed related to that. And then what a challenge that we have is that we also have coaches who have already experienced that. And so each year we try to also integrate additional opportunities for coaching. In the past, we've used models such as evocative coaching. In the last year or two, we've been partnering with 21 CSLA, our California Leadership Initiative. They've had some excellent coaching sessions, and so they've had the opportunity, if they didn't want to attend the cognitive coaching or they had attended in the past, that they could opt into the 21 CSLA as well. The next area.
Just quick, thank you, Dr. Liz. We appreciate this, and I don't want to cut your time short. I know you have a couple more slides left, and I know we are past the time, but I want to give you the opportunity to still continue to address. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that time. I'm going to try to be very brief, but I do want to address something that was important to Sarah and the site of visitation team as they came. That our teacher induction program candidates were not experiencing the kind of choice that they needed to align to their professional development growth goals. And we had Canvas came up earlier and what's been happening with Canvas. But again, 5 years ago, or it was probably about 4.5 years ago now, we began shifting all of our program materials over to Canvas. And part of that shift was to align all of the modules. There are more than 20 modules in there that they're able to choose from. What we recognize now and what we're learning and what we're excited about being able to implement is that we also have opportunities to have them engage in local professional learning and regional communities of practice and things like that we can begin integrating into those elements. And so we're excited about those future steps. And then, of course, we've been aligning all of the research within our professional development sessions for both the CSTPs and for the capsules. In this final slide, I just want to share, and this will be very brief, but we are excited about future actions. We're most excited about the opportunity to really bring all of our partners together. We care deeply about the people we serve within our community, and we have some amazing partners that we're working with. We had a really large response from the communication that we sent out in November of people who wanted to participate at various levels, right? Some said, I promise we'll get that survey in this year, because you don't always get that 100% rate that you hope you'll get. And some said, yeah, no, I think I would love to participate in focus groups. And we had quite a few people send communication saying, I'd love to be a part of the leadership team. I would welcome the opportunity to serve on EPAC. And so that for us is, I think, where we really begin is with all of our constituents together. We've created a theory of improvement, the beginning of that theory, and we look forward to presenting that to you at a future date, along with the data that we've compiled in this first quarter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Thank you also, Dr. Gus. Appreciate your being here and providing the information for us. This is now an opportunity for public comment. If there are a member of the public who wish to make a brief comment, please come forward. And maybe next to Dr. Colombini. And then when you do get to the mic, you just state your name and if you have an affiliation, if you're representing anyone or yourself at this point. Thank you.
Members of the committee, commissioners, Steve McDougall representing CFT, a union of professional educators and classified professionals. I'm sure you recall I was here during your last meeting to speak on this matter. And subsequent to that, myself and the local president of the Salinas Valley Federation of Teachers have met twice for an extended length of a discussion and unpacking the concerns we had with both Drs. Gus and Dr. Lewis. And they didn't mention this in their presentation, but they did not get a holiday break. They were busy. You got their attention, certainly subsequent to the last meeting, and they are busy getting to work. Our concerns were heard. Sure, time will tell if they'll be implemented and corrections made. They've made a change in leadership of the program, which was clearly necessary after the last meeting, and I'm fortunate that's been done. I don't know what your decision will be today based upon the evidence that you have, but I think they should continue the work and try to make a go of it. I think there's hope there. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, this is now an opportunity for any questions or comments from committee members. Member Kreisha, then Member McKee.
Good morning, and thank you so much for your work. This work is very difficult at times, and being able to really dig in deep like you have done, it's very obvious from all the things and the way you've reached out to everyone and really collaborated. And I just applaud you on that, and I just want you to know that your work is greatly appreciated, and I think you're kind of on your way. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member McKee.
I want to extend my appreciation as well. When I saw that stipulations table, my initial thought was this is kind of a model of what we need. We need things, as was shared earlier by Member Taylor, when things are listed on this side and then that side, and we can go in and see those pieces, that helps us. And some pieces I just, through your presentation, to commend the communication, the collaboration, and it looks like the restructuring is taking place. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to spend some time and figure out what's there. So then I put on kind of the accreditation hat, right? And so this is not an isolated process. This is a 7-year process that goes to this moment of time. So throughout the past 7 years, there's preconditions, common standards reviews. So a lot of reporting happened to get to this point. So there has been a lot of time to develop. And I appreciate now that examining the pieces. The one part that when I opened up the links and looked at what's there, what I'm seeing is like templates of things that you are intending to do. And I think what we're looking for is what are you doing? So like, for example, if this is the IIP for this year, perhaps here's a sample of an actual candidate actually using that IIP, because I look at verbiage, and if I'm incorrect, please clarify, because I do want to hear like if it was a goal to do this or it actually is being done. So that was kind of, there's just kind of two themes, and that would be one theme. So it's just a curiosity of the sample documents of is it being implemented or not being implemented? Because then maybe, because I believe in good intentions of everybody, maybe if this is stage one, applaud you on that, but then maybe in March, stage 2 would be here's the clarification of those. So I know it's a lot of information I just shared. I don't want it not to be acknowledged of the hard work, but maybe another layer's needed. But what are your thoughts on that?
And can I go ahead and start, and then I'll turn it right over? Yes, absolutely. As you know, our timeline was short from the prior meeting to now. So as you heard us say earlier, and even acknowledged by Mr. McDougall, we have been working around the clock to put all of these things in place. But you start with your templates, you start with what it is you need to do, and then what we need is more time to implement some of these things where we're transitioning. Some things that we could do immediately, like the advisory group that you heard about earlier, immediately we were able to reorganize. I met with every one of our university presidents and all of those who wanted to serve on our advisory team. We got that set up. The first meeting has already occurred. We have future meetings planned. What we would like to provide to you at the March meeting is the evidence that shows these things have been implemented. We'd like to provide the agendas, the minutes of the meetings. We'd like to share those IIP plans and how they have changed. And so with more time, we absolutely plan to do that.
May I ask a follow-up to that? And I appreciate that, because what I noticed is some of those meetings had taken place before our last meeting, and then I do know there's structure changes. I'm like, oh, that would have been good to hear in October that you had done those, but in October we kind of shared that those things weren't in place. But then in looking at this evidence, like, but they were in place. So I'm kind of confused as a reader, and the minutes or the other pieces would help clarify, because we want to honor the hard work you're doing, but there's a disconnect. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and we saw that right away as well. A lot of the things we had in place where we fell short was providing the evidence that those things were existing. Hence the change in leadership and the work, the continuous improvement work in our ability to communicate and articulate what has happened in our program and what we are planning for the future. And Dr. Lewis, I'm going to turn it over to you to add.
Right. I appreciate this question and comment so much because, we thought a lot about it as we were trying to very quickly compile our actions in terms of moving forward. And one of the things, I think I mentioned this earlier, but that we really recognized that we failed to provide all of the evidence that we needed to provide during the program review stage, right? So those were things that really our site visitation team should have had access to, and we wanted to make sure that those were there and they were available. You'll see that some of those actions were taking place prior to that because most of the things that make up a really rich and meaningful program are in place. If you were there and you were with us standing in person, and what we have to do a better job of is documenting those practices. And then we're looking forward to the opportunity to bring forward that evidence as you shared, like what's that next stage of that and how can we provide documentation and evidence of what that looks like. So we look forward to March and being able to provide those details to you.
Member Taylor, and then Member Hallis.
Thank you. My committee members and I are here in service of the public, and I want to thank and acknowledge the public comment. It was very important to me last time, and it was very impactful to me today. In thinking about this on my long drive to Sacramento, I got the sense from comments and from the report last time that there needed to be a culture change in your program. There was not a culture of continuous improvement. There was not a culture of best practice. Can you characterize for me how the culture of your program has changed since we were last talking?
Yeah, I would love to be able to address that.
Absolutely.
We absolutely agree with you. And part of this is a perfect storm of coming, post-pandemic, a lot of what happened, capacity, turnover in different positions, things like that. And part of it is that we recognize, and I know that our colleagues from Humboldt mentioned this, and I appreciated when I was listening to them share some of their experiences. But we recognize that we weren't really using our assets from all of our other department teams across the division. And so we have an incredible strategic improvement team that provides continuous improvement services on a daily basis. They're probably in 3 different districts right now. Members of those teams have been integrated as a part of this process. And we have re-engaged all of the people who had made this such a rich experience previously. So we do anticipate and look forward to the opportunity to completely redesign. We want an exemplary program, not because we want to meet the stipulations, but because we care deeply about the educators in our region, about growing the pathways that need to be developed and grown. We also have a culture where we have to nurture and develop our own teachers and administrators. And so we believe that working in partnership with all of the constituents who are around us, listening deeply and in aligning continuous improvement structure within that process will lead us to that culture change that we're expecting. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. If I may, wonderful comment by my colleague about evidence. Meetings have been held November 7th, 14th, 21st, 29th, December 6th, 13th, 20th, 27th, January 3rd, January 10th, and January 17th. I've been looking through things. I don't find minutes and agenda for those meetings, which that would be very useful evidence in the future. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your work and acknowledge your commitment. That's a lot of meetings. That's a lot of time, energy, and effort put into, making changes. Can you characterize those meetings for me just broadly? How have they been going? Are they productive? How long do they last? That sort of thing.
Right. I guess this is my opportunity to extend my thanks and appreciation to Sarah and Steph, who have been meeting with us diligently in those meetings each week. It's been very productive. I appreciate that they're modeling sort of the practice that we want to see in the program, right? This idea of just-in-time support. Sometimes we just have questions. We're like, wait a minute, what is this? What does this say when this is happening here? And can you clarify this for us? And sometimes we're really digging in and going deeper into some of the program elements and some of the components. So it's been fantastic working with them. As Dr. Gus mentioned, we really have streamlined communications. So communications between us and the commission, communications between our partner organizations, communications within our internal team. And those meetings have been useful in guiding that discussion and that shift toward continuous improvement and us carrying those practices back within our community. And Sarah may want to.
Yeah, those exact meeting dates, those sound very familiar, were the meeting dates when commission staff were meeting with the institutional staff. So we're focused on assisting them, kind of focusing them on, it's important for you to focus on what actions you have taken in preparation for this. Like, you need to show evidence of implementation, and you need to let the COA know exactly what actions you have taken to address these stipulations, because it's important that you're implementing things. You see these templates on the stipulations table. You need to show you have candidates. You've had candidates. What are you doing with them? Show the COA what you're doing, and that's the message that Steph Morgado and myself have been providing in these November 3rd, etc., all those meetings.
So those meetings are productive.
Correct.
Yes. And can I again just add, I think you'll see at the March update much more evidence. You will see those meeting agendas. You will see those meeting minutes from both the advisory meetings and all of the other meetings that are taking place. The feedback that we are getting, we're taking seriously and making those changes, but changes do take time. And so we are asking all of you to please give us that time needed. We want to have a top-notch program. It's important to us. We're taking this very seriously. Please do know that we will provide that evidence to you at that March meeting.
Thank you, Member Hallis.
Good morning, and thank you so much for all the conversations and the ongoing talk that's going on. It's certainly a heavy lift. I guess where I'm coming from a little bit is that these are 2016 standards. So I know there's probably stuff around the pandemic and program changes and not everything being available to the team. And while conversations are important, some of the stuff are non-negotiables. Like, they can happen tomorrow. So what I would really like to see is something beyond minutes and agendas. What are the candidates doing right now, this week? Mm-hmm. What does their ILP look like? What are their meetings with candidates? That's the evidence I need to see before this other stuff, right? Because the candidates are going through this program right now. So while I love all the, and it looks like flyers and promotional materials, and I see a real dedication to long-term fixes, mm-hmm. but, that almost needs to be secondary. You talked about how templates have to start first, and I agree with that, but they need to be happening now in the field. So if you could just talk a little bit about how is this trickled down to the candidates this year right now, mm-hmm. and what type of evidence can we hope to see at the next meeting of actual ILPs, of actual coach trainings and these things that, mm-hmm. again, if they've been happening since 2016 and we haven't seen them all and they're just being refined, what can we hope to see around that?
Thank you. I appreciate your feedback and agree. And it really has been a matter of time. We started trying to really document all of the processes, the research-based theory, the coaching models, things like that, and bringing partners together we have actually increased our connection with our candidates and folks who are working in the field, our coaches who are working alongside them. And we will begin to put together all of the evidence of the work that they're doing in the field and what that is looking like as that work is transpiring. So we look forward to being able to provide that. We just didn't have enough time to be able to get everything into this one with a lot of the efforts that have been underway. I know that it was mentioned we have extended our team and we have been working diligently, but there were some efforts to engage in some of the processes of the partner communication and the program feedback and evaluation. We're trying to conduct this as a true continuous improvement, like creating a theory of improvement and moving into a strategic design. And to do that, you really have to listen first and then respond and act. So we've just been very focused on trying to make that as authentic as we could. And when we come in March, we look forward to providing you with exactly what you are asking for.
So just to clarify, the candidate experience has been the same this year as in past years?
Yeah, our candidate experience, you can see from the original report, our candidates reported feeling connected to their coaches and reported feeling that they had good experiences. Where some of the challenges came in was there wasn't documentation of what was actually being provided related to the actual accreditation process. That's why we focused a little bit more heavily on the documentation side this time, and we'll shift over next time to really focus on the relational aspects, the on-the-ground workings of what's happening each day, and then being able to demonstrate what that looks like in action.
Okay. Member Morrison.
Last time when we heard this, and this is connected to Kevin's comments, I was really impressed by the fact that a representative of the workers had taken the time to come here and tell us that things were not right. And so I got the impression that it wasn't just a matter that things were being done properly and not being reported. The impression I got is that things were not being done properly. Having said that, I appreciate that he's come back and said that, people are making the effort to turn things around. So I do appreciate that. Like Kevin, it was impactful for me the first time, and it is the second. So I acknowledge that. But I have a question to the staff that this report comes with no recommendation. So am I right when I understand that if we vote to accept this report, then all the stipulations and the probationary status will continue until we see them next time? Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just a progress report.
Thank you.
And just one comment. So we all appreciate the efforts that are going on behind the scenes, but I think there's a common element around the table, and that is as far as evidence, long-term and ongoing. And I think an institutional's history relies on the memory of those who are participating within there, but without any kind of substantiated evidence and paperwork that can be followed, it's difficult to understand the trend. And with us as a committee, there's a turnover every year of at least 3 members. And it's why we still maintain the 6 of K-12 and 6 of higher ed. Right. Sometimes the terms are renewed, but as more and more people are brought into the process, there's always going to be a learning curve. And sometimes who will actually make some of the final decisions are going to be different from those who were here from the beginning of the process. And it could either be a more forgiving committee or it could be a more in-depth. You just don't know. And so I would just encourage you to provide the evidence as soon and as quickly as possible, because as this turnover continues, memories can get a little foggy. We want to be sure that there is some kind of track record that we can look forward.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Co-Chair Tchaikovsky.
Thank you. Thank you, all my colleagues here, for asking what I thought are really good questions, and thank you for being here in person with us and talking with us. Sarah, thank you for being here, too. I heard a little bit of something that didn't really align. I heard you saying we've had a robust, rich program since 2016, and then yet I hear Member Hollis identifying an absence of specific evidence thereof. And between 2016 and 2024 are numerous years. So my question relates to the evidence as well. I would like to see some ILPs, and I would like to see those at the next meeting, and I would like to see them time-stamped so that we have assurance that, in fact, new standards are being implemented in your program. Additionally, what I hear today sounds like 85% high-level, superintendent-level conversation. I want to know what your teacher leaders are doing. I want to know what your coaches are doing. I want to see evidence that the people closest to your new teachers are, in fact, involved in leadership and documentation of your program. So I would like to see materials that are directly originating from teachers involved in your program. Those are some of the things I would like to see in March. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Any further comments? Oh, yes, Member Leggett and then Member McKee.
Yes, I do echo everyone's sentiment in regards to applauding you for recognizing areas that need to be improved. And one of the comments before Mr. Hollis mentioned is I really would love to hear from the students. We had, in all of the processes, you have students that are new to a program, students that are within a program, and then students that are coming after. So those are the ones that I'd like to see like tangible evidence in terms of how these changes are affecting them.
Thank you. Absolutely. We'll make sure that happens. Yep.
Thank you, Member McKee.
And just the acknowledgement as well that for both programs to follow up on what you shared, because we have a CASC program and a teacher induction program.
Yes.
And I think last time the public comment related strongly to the CASC program, if my recollection is correct.
Right.
And just for my review, and I know it's been a short period of time, when we look at standards, whoever's the leader, knowing that, one program is an ILP, one program is an IIP, making sure the language isn't mirrored. There's CSTPs and capsules. When I was reading, I sometimes think that was interchangeable. They actually are different. Leaders are looking at capsules, teachers are looking at CSTPs.
Yes.
So again, this was a short period of time, so there's no commentary, but just being, when we look next time, we're looking at that thoroughness. We want to make sure our leaders are proficient in the capsules, not in the CSTPs, which they should be proficient in to become a leader.
Right.
And so it's just the wonderings, right? Not commentary, but the wonderings to have that robust system that Member Hallis said is in place right now. So perhaps what could be, throwing out there your choice, great time for a survey, right? Great time to provide survey results or something from the field, kind of connecting to the standards that you can then put onto that beautiful table to say, yes, they feel they have gotten supports in capsule 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be.
Right.
Just as an idea, because we want to help your candidates have the best experience possible, and I hear loud and clear from both of you that you wish the same.
Yes.
And again, applauding the work. I mean, you did a lot of work in there, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you. And maybe we can demonstrate that better if we adjust our stipulations table to show here's our teacher induction program and here's our educator administrator, like separate it out a little bit more on that stipulations table so we can provide that clarity. We have.
As a follow-up, thank you, because you are doing it. I want to acknowledge you are. There is a box for TIP and CASC. It almost would, if it could, read the other way, because it gets hard.
Right.
And I imagine hard for you as well. So
it was a lot.
To read that, I love your idea. I think that would be an easier read.
Great. Thank you. We will make that change.
And thank you, Member Taylor.
Yes, I concur that I think that would be a wonderful change. Focus groups. You talked about focus groups in your presentation. The focus groups are with candidates, correct?
The focus groups are with candidates, the participants, and the coaches and our advisors and employers. So we're actually really trying to do a comprehensive look all the way across, and we look forward to sharing and being able to bring those data with us when we appear in March.
Yeah, so you expect, could we expect to see some data from those focus groups in March?
Absolutely, and our survey data as well.
Okay, because that could be, I think, important evidence. So,
yes, agreed.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comments, questions? Yeah, Member Cretia.
I just wanted to also just acknowledge the communication between Sarah and your team, and just say, what a great collaboration it looks like. And so, Sarah, thank you so much for your support in this work. Thank you so much for that.
Commissioner Davis.
I try to typically have the last word. First, I want to thank staff. This, weekly meetings. It's a lot. I appreciate that. And then the robust work that I saw in your report. I'm really impressed by what I see here in a report. This is just some blanket advice. Take it for whatever it will, or you will. When you report back in March, I'd like to see some good, bad, and ugly in your reports. And I'll explain in context. Okay. We typically see reports with all glossy, great, wonderful stats and data. I want to see what people aren't getting or liking in the program. And then that sets the bar for the improvement on a continuous improvement spectrum. Mm-hmm. I work a lot with National Board through Stanford, and I have, 600 candidates or so that I work with. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that educators are afraid to do is to, just get that full exposure, acknowledgement of flaws. Mm-hmm. We strive for perfection. We teach our students, hey, you should strive for an A+ in class. And so that to them means perfection, but to me it means failure. You must fail in order to learn. Mm-hmm. Often when I see reports, I have to ask, okay, so what am I missing here? So I look at the, between the lines there, mm-hmm. and ask those tough questions. So when you come back to this body, because I know these people really well now, they ask difficult questions. So I just want you to be prepared for that. So if you put it in the report, it's there. They can ask questions directly about it. But if they have to figure it out and ask those questions, that may not be, favorable. So just putting that out there, because they set the bar pretty high here. Mm-hmm. These are some of the greatest professionals that I've had the pleasure to serve on a committee with. And they ask very thoughtful and fair questions, and they set the bar pretty high here. So I don't get to come to these meetings very often, but I geek out on them on YouTube, and most people don't do that, right? I'm that one viewer that you see at the bottom, mm-hmm. and I listen to what goes on. I'm a classroom teacher in Gilroy. Right. Actually, I'm kind of in the neighborhood there, and I don't get to come to these very often. Mm-hmm. But when I have been part of induction programs, I've been a coach in the past, a mentor in the past. I've seen through UC San Diego Extension, or USD Extension, I should say. I was part of their program, and how in-depth that is. Kudos to you all for taking that responsibility on, because it takes a whole lot to run a program that way, but also to produce candidates that are worthy of working in a place like Monterey, because Monterey is just like one of those pristine districts or counties, just like Santa Clara County is, as far as teacher preparation goes. So my hat's off to you all for undertaking this endeavor and taking that first step and the changing of staff. And again, with our public comment today and my colleague out there in the audience, always with the wisdom. I used to be a member of CFT, and working closely with the Monterey County Office of Education when I was in Morgan Hill schools about 20 years ago, and working with our partners in Salinas and in Watsonville, and Santa Cruz County too, that you all do some great work there. So hats off again to you, and I'll stop talking, but just tell you that we're looking forward to some good stuff at your next visit to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Davis.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. I really do appreciate the comments. Very insightful. And one thing that Commissioner Davis addressed is something that we see fairly frequently in other reports, and that is the area of concern is often a system for continuous improvement, which includes looking in the mirror and acknowledging the good, the bad, and the ugly. If anybody Clint Eastwood fans. But so it really is that aspect of it, and that's how we grow. And so we see that consistently with different reports, and we do appreciate that. at this time you're acknowledging what has not gone well, and just being able to see that in black and white, it just gives a little bit more authenticness, I guess, and genuine approach to things, and not only for your improvement, but also just as far as the overall system as well. So, was there somebody else have a comment? I know, Member Taylor?
Yeah, I was going to say, I make a comment very similar to yours, I think. I've done some focus group research. In the context of focus group research, data are the anonymous comments of the participants. And thank you, Commissioner Davis, for your very sage words. If in the March report we're reading evidence of everything's great and wonderful, I for one, am going to question the authenticity of the research being done in those focus groups. Yeah, we need to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the warts and all evidence from those focus groups, which I think is much needed here in this context. I think that's a fabulous plan that you have to conduct focus groups to get that evidence. So I look forward to reading it. Sadly, I will not be at the March meeting. But now that I know these are on YouTube, I'm going to be watching very carefully. And I will be reading those, and I will be at the June meeting. So I look forward to seeing you then, and I look forward to hearing about your successes and your progress on this journey. Thank you to staff for the hard work that they're putting in the background. I want to publicly acknowledge that. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Taylor. Ms. Hickey.
I just have a request for the members of the COA. So as you consider your motion to accept or not accept this report, and if you want them to come back in March, I heard a lot of things around the table about what you'd like to see. If you could be as clear as possible with staff and with Monterey County about exactly what things you think are priority things that should come back to you or come back to the staff. For instance, I heard completed ILPs. I heard some things about teachers and mentors, but I'm not sure what that exactly would be. So it'd be helpful to tease that out a little bit for staff. I think that will help us as you've done many, many times with other reports. These 3 or 4 things are super important for us to see next meeting. So if you could kind of do that in your motion, that would be really, really helpful, I think, for staff.
And I wrote a list, so but
So
it's not my motion, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Not my motion, but I was taking notes.
The list as well.
It's probably, before we actually do the motion, maybe we want to hear what the list is, and then if somebody wants to say, we'll make a motion with what Dr. Colombini just added, it might be the easiest way. So
I heard time-stamped ILPs and IIPs, both programs. What are coaches doing? What are the mentors doing? Again, honoring both programs, TIP and CASC. What are the teacher leaders doing? They would like coach trainings. They want to hear from the actual students, candidates in this case. Would like the focus group data in March. They want to bring the good, bad, and ugly for the data. This is quotes, sorry, to show continuous improvement. So that's what I have.
thank you. And then anybody want to add to that? Member McKee.
One of the things, and I don't know how to wrap it around, it's just like a consistency in language of what's provided. And a side note, and I forgot to mention, even like for the CASC program, like the standards say 20 hours a year of professional development, but there's one checklist that says I think I saw 34 hours, then 15 hours, and it was never 20 hours, which is the standards. So because we're looking at the implementation of the standards, the consistency that whatever we're getting is matching the standard. And I appreciate that you have your candidates do 35 hours. It's above and beyond. That's amazing. But only 20 hours is required. So, but not 15. So just when we're reading, that consistency of language would be helpful for us.
Absolutely.
Right, in the evidence that they're submitting, there's not evenness. Things don't match each other. A handbook says something or something, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for the addition. Anyone else wish to add or modify?
So those could be, it is 2024, so to Member McKee's point, I mean, all of the content could be hyperlinked or somehow associated with the relevant standard. You know, if there is an artifact submitted, for example, the materials and the agenda and the sign-in sheet and the feedback from a coach training meeting, those four things could be directly tied to a very specific set of standards. That's what I think we need to see. We need to see that the evidence of actually implementation is clearly articulated to the standard, not somehow could be associated, but it's deliberately designed and planned to match. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And any other additions or modifications? All right, seeing none, it's time for a motion. Would anyone wish to make a motion? And you have to repeat everything that you just heard. Member Taylor.
I move that the Committee on Accreditation accept the staff recommendation to accept the Monterey County Office of Education's first quarterly report with the that it says here that the Commission staff recommends that the Committee on Accreditation accept the first quarterly report. I concur with that statement. I endorse that statement with the expectation that at the next meeting attended by the Monterey County Office of Education, evidence be presented in line with Dr. Colombini's statement and the comments of the committee, that evidence be in evidence that progress is being made.
Well done. Thank you, Member Taylor. And just to clarify, yes, staff can recommend that we accept the report, but they're not commenting on the contents necessarily. It's just say the acceptance of it itself, that it has been submitted. So, okay, so that's the motion before us. Is there a second? Second by Member McKee. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. So we want to thank you very much, both for being here and present in person to discuss with us, but your report that you brought to us, and also your willingness to move in the right direction. And we've heard you, and I know you've heard us, and so we look forward to assisting you any way possible moving down the road. And so we'll see the next report in March. Right, so
We
thank you much
appreciate
for
your
being here.
feedback. Thank you
Absolutely.
so
Thank you.
much for your time today.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Colombini and the whole staff. Thank you. We're a little behind, and quite a bit behind. That's okay. We had details to discuss. We have item 28. I want to propose that we do item 28 now, and maybe just do a brief stretch break after that before we move on to item 29. So item 28 is the report of the accreditation team to University of California, Riverside. Consultant William Hattrick will introduce the item, and joining his team is lead Dr. Cynthia Grutzik and institutional representative Dr. Francis Valdovinos, School of Education Assistant Dean and Director of the Teacher Education Program. We have Odie Jasso, Assistant Director, Teacher Education Program, Dr. Kevin Vaughn, Dean, UCR Extension, Marie Martin, Associate Dean, UCR Extension, Denise Payne, Lead Credential Analyst, and Janelle Mijares, Credential Analyst from UCR Extension. And as we are getting them online, it looks like they are with us here. Are there any recusals? One recusal. And Patrick McKee is moving to his honorary seat at the... All right, so we have one recusal, Patrick McKee. Is there anyone in the state you do not know?
This week, no.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Looks like we are ready. Mr. Hattrick, please begin.
All right. Good morning again, committee members. The virtual site visit for the University of California, Riverside took place November 12th through 15th for their 9 educator preparation credential programs. The institutional leadership, the program directors, faculty, and staff from UC Riverside were very responsive to team requests for additional information related to their programs and accommodating any additional requests and needs of the site visit team at the visit. In addition to conducting interviews, the team reviewed evidence provided both before and during the visit to determine findings on all of the common and program standards. I'd like to take this time to thank our 8 team members who worked diligently throughout the site visit, led by our wonderful team lead, Cynthia Grutzik. And I will now turn it over to Cynthia to go over the findings of the site visit team.
Thank you, William, and good morning, everyone. Good morning to members of the Committee on Accreditation. It's great to see you all, and many thanks to our colleagues from UCR. It's great to see so many of you here. I think to the COE members, you can see just by the representation of the UCR team here, a sample of what we experienced in our visit, that people really turned out, really showed up, participated from the very beginning, and made it clear that this process was really important to them. As William said, our site visit went as planned. It was planned very well. Thank you to the team at UCR. We reviewed many documents leading up to the visit. We looked closely at the CTC's data dashboard for UCR throughout the visit and before the visit, including candidate performance assessment outcomes and survey results. I think we're getting better at using that tool. We interviewed current candidates, graduates, faculty, staff, leadership, and our team members met with program coordinators a week or so before the actual start of the visit, which is which we've been doing more and more with teams, just to get a sense of who they are and to ask some of the big questions, big picture questions, get a sense of the programs before we start the actual visits, and that's been really beneficial. And then, the visit started on Sunday afternoon with a full set of interviews, and that really front-loaded the visit with lots of information and helped us get into Monday really actively. As William mentioned, the UCR team was very responsive to our requests for more students and graduates to interview. I think to the point made in the previous meeting, this was something that was hard to get enough people to come to the visit. We talked about it a lot with the team at UCR because they sent out so many invitations, and still it was they had to keep inviting people. But that happened. We got enough people. But I've seen this on other visits too, so it was just one of the puzzles of the visit. And then each evening at the visit, our team met after dinner to share notes and insights and to sort of build that collective discussion towards a decision together and our recommendations. And on that note, I want to say a special thank you to the site visit team. On common standards was Alan Enomoto and Virginia Kennedy. And on program standards were Tiara Crothers, Maurice Belote, Mariana Harris, and Carrie Morgan. It was a great team to work with. And if you scroll down to page 34 of the report, you'll see my institution summary with the education unit comprising two distinct organizations, the School of Education and the University Extension Professional Studies. The team interviewed the leadership, faculty, candidates, and graduates of both divisions to arrive at our findings and recommendations. So these two organizations and their respective deans work very well together, sharing a vision and many practical aspects of preparing educators to serve this huge geographic region. They've recently collaborated, for example, on starting a multiple subject credential program at the Coachella Valley Palm Desert campus. So our findings and recommendations, I want to say a little bit about that now. All of the evidence we reviewed and the interviews we conducted led us to the findings you see in our report. We found, first of all, that all common standards are met. And we found that program standards are nearly all met, with two standards met with concerns. The preliminary multiple single subject with intern was met with concerns, as we found that this standard was inconsistently met. As you'll see on page 11 of the report, some university supervisors described the training and orientation they received, while others could not point to that clearly. And for a similar reason, the specialist teaching bilingual authorization in Spanish was met with concerns. We found inconsistent evidence that all bilingual mentors are trained by the program to provide candidates guidance and assistance to support improvements in practice. So, and then related, you'll see that for Common Standard 3 on page 39, this area was also flagged as being met inconsistently, since there were two program standards with inconsistent findings in the same area. We deliberated quite a bit as a team about how to best support the institution through our recommendation. We agreed that these concerns don't rise to the level of a stipulation and that a seventh-year report would be a sufficient response, especially as there are steps already in place for mentors and supervisors to be oriented and trained. It's a matter of carrying these through consistently across the programs. And we believe a seventh-year report would be adequate for showing that progress. So therefore, our recommendation is accreditation with a seventh-year report. I want to share some highlights from our visit. Across all of the university leadership, there is a high regard for the educator preparation programs at UCR and for the School of Ed and the University Extension as organizations deeply committed to the work of preparing educators and creating opportunities for underrepresented and first-gen students in this region. This was especially clear as we spoke with Dean Spencer of the School of Ed and Dean Vaughn of University Extension. And both deans talked about the need to grow their focus beyond Riverside itself to a focus on the Inland Empire, which is a huge area, but which is what UCR is mandated to serve. They described partnerships with all the major school districts in the Inland Empire and with the organization Growing Inland Achievement. Overall, it's clear that they have a major impact on this region, which was also noted by Chancellor Wilcox. The candidates we met with were very complimentary of faculty and staff regarding the level of support they experienced from the beginning through the completion of their programs. They described them as being responsive, thoughtful, and available. Students recognized how hard the staff and faculty work and said that they work hard too. One told us that his program was extremely rigorous, but he'd do it again in a heartbeat. The programs at UCR have a strong reputation in the region. The employers we interviewed offered many testimonials about the graduates and described them as understanding the culture of the community because it's embedded in the programs. They're eager to hire UCR graduates and want more of them in their schools. And then finally, I want to note that the connection to alumni is remarkable. Alumni really appreciate that they are true scholar practitioners as a result of coming through these programs. They can translate the research that they read and apply it, read or do. The programs at UCR provide ways for alumni to stay connected, and they become part of the cycle of preparation and mentoring as they advance in their own careers. So overall, as the report describes, we were able to learn a lot about the education unit at UCR, and we found what we needed to complete a successful visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grudczyk. We now invite institutional representatives to briefly comment about the visit. We remind you it's not a time to dispute the team's report, but rather provide any thoughts that you had about the visit itself.
Yeah, thank you. This is Kevin Vaughn. I'm Dean of University Extension at UCR. I just wanted to thank the accreditation team, particularly Dr. Grudczyk, the CTC, William Hattrick, for the site visit, and really on behalf of Dean Spencer, the School of Education, and on behalf of all of us at UCR, wanted to thank everybody involved for the site visit. I just wanted to comment that CTC provided just a great leadership team who was professional, clear, and really a pleasure to work with over the course of the site visit and leading up to the site visit. We really, really appreciated their timely responses, their guidance, and their support really over the past year through the end of the visit. So thanks on behalf of all of us at UCR.
Thank you for your comments. Any other member of UCR wish to offer any comment?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Assistant Dean and Director Francis Valdovinos. I mimic what Kevin just mentioned. I'm very grateful for the team. Cynthia, you are amazing. Thank you for all your feedback. William, for being the liaison between us and all the team. Of course, Alan, Virginia, Tiara, Maurice, Veronica, Mariana, and Carrie. You were all very supportive throughout this process and very clear and concise about the process. So thank you very much, and we are very satisfied with the results.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Valdovinos. Any other member of UCR wish to offer any comment? All right. It's now an opportunity for the committee members to offer questions, comments. Member Taylor.
Just to comment that I appreciate the work of staff and the review team led by Dr. Grudczyk. The report is very thorough, detailed and very much appreciated.
Thank you. Any other member of the committee? Co-chair Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I would echo what Member Taylor just said. Thank you for the very thorough report and thoughtful consideration of many different initiatives. And commendations to Riverside, given your geography and the diversity in your region. Thank you for serving that mandate that you just identified. I was just going to make a little footnote about the whole mentor training conundrum challenge. This is obviously difficult statewide when we have interns who are coming in to work with teachers in a support capacity. So clearly partnerships will be helpful in finding different ways to document those 10 hours. So just as you're moving forward, I'm thinking, maybe consider how you might differentiate what that training looks like for the various diverse regions, and perhaps use reciprocal agreements with school districts to help you document that those 10 hours have been A, done, but B, also that they're relevant to the teachers and the coaches that are in those particular schools. So, maybe somebody's, gone through an induction training. Those 10 hours could, if aligned with the standards for training, count for the 10 hours that you're required to document as well.
All right, thank you. Any other member wish to offer comment or ask a question? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Taylor.
I move that the COA accept the recommendation of accreditation with a 7th year follow-up report for the University of California, Riverside.
All right, so moved. Is there a second? Member Hallis. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries. So congratulations, and thank you so much, Dr. Valdovinos, Dr. Vaughn, Ms. Martin, Ms. Mahades, Dr. Fleming, Dr. Gutzek, and Mr. Hattrick. So thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Enjoy your day. Thank you. We're on to item 29, and I think just take like a brief, maybe a 5-minute stretch break to enjoy what Member McKee has been doing most of the morning. So we'll see you in 5.
Do you have a preference? No.
Recording stopped.
All right. I'd like to go ahead and reconvene the meeting past our break. We're looking at item 29. Item 29 is the update on challenges related to initial program
Recording in
approval submission.
progress.
That's okay. I'll restart. So item 29 is the update on challenges related to initial program approval submissions. Member McKee, do you need to recuse yourself? Okay. All right. Thank you. Consultants Miranda Gutierrez, Rockstar Poonam Betty, and Rosemary Wren will present the information item.
All right. Okay. Good morning. So this agenda item presents topics for discussion and guidance related to initial program review, which we'll refer to a lot as IPR. IPR is a process followed by commission-approved program sponsors who wish to add a new program to their existing educator preparation offerings. The topics for discussion include challenges that we're seeing with submissions. So the IPR team is seeing an increase in incomplete or inaccessible proposals, which is, diverting staff time and resources to provide additional support in various capacities. In many instances, the IPR team is conducting multiple reviews of a proposal for completeness and accessibility before it's sent out to a review team. So this has led to delays for all programs who are in the IPR process. The team is presenting this as an information item where we're identifying common issues in proposals and asking for a discussion that may contribute to a more efficient review process for institutions, teams, and staff, basically everyone who's involved in the process. And so before we discuss the challenges we've identified, I'd like to provide a little background on IPR and some of the work the team has done over the last couple of years to strengthen and streamline the process. So in the past, IPR proposals included heavy narratives, sometimes hundreds of pages. So a shift in the process has led to a reliance on specific evidence to demonstrate alignment to program standards. And this process is better aligned with program review that's due in year 5 of an institution's accreditation cycle. In addition to updating what is submitted for initial program review with an emphasis on lengthy narrative, we've taken other actions, and so some of those are included in the item, and I'll go over them in a little more detail here. So the IPR team has grown from a team from 1 to 2, and I did have a rock star team of 3 in my script before Poonam was praised as one, so it is true, it is fact. So we've also had support from additional staff who are helping us intake the forms, and so we'd like to thank our colleague Terry for her assistance with that work. We've tried to make our webpage more user-friendly with step-by-step instructions on the page, and so this includes drop-down menus that include a little more detail on each step of the process. The IPR team has recorded a webinar that's specific to the PK3 ECE specialist credential submissions. However, the webinar can be helpful for all types of program proposals as it goes over the components for an IPR submission. For both the preconditions and common standards, there are evidence guides that include the required types of evidence for each precondition and for each element of the common standards, giving institutions a little more ideas of what we're expecting to see in those submissions. The IPR team has also made themselves available for one-on-one meetings with institutions, and in 2023, last calendar year, the IPR team averaged at least one weekly meeting with institutions who are preparing their IPR proposals or who have already submitted proposals and are in the review process. So to provide better support, starting in November 23, the team started twice monthly office hours. Those have been attended by institutional representatives who are either planning to submit a proposal, thinking about it, or are currently in the review process and have questions about how to address their feedback. So the idea of office hours was initiated as a result of seeing where we were spending our time, and so the thought of office hours found a way maybe to consolidate that to a little more dedicated space where folks can come and talk to us. And so they provide an open space for program sponsors to ask questions about the IPR process. And to date, again, we've had a range of attendees, those who are just in the early stages of proposing a program and those who have already been reviewed and have questions on how to address their feedback maybe. And then most recently, the team has implemented the use of an IPR intake form, which we'll talk a little bit we'll talk more about later. But this form is used to identify, and it's not limited to identifying missing components, inaccessible links, or a lack of bookmarks. When a proposal is received, this form is going to be completed by staff. And if items in the proposal need to be corrected, they'll be noted on the form, and that form would be sent back to the institution so they can make those corrections. And again, this form, the idea of this form came as a result of we were sending multiple emails back and forth, trying to correct things in proposals. And so we wanted to do one overall intake so we could send feedback to institutions in a more systematic way. So with that, I'll go ahead and let Poonam discuss some of the challenges that led to these actions.
All right. Thanks, Miranda. So at the top of page 2 of the item is a list of common issues that we are seeing with IPR proposals. So these issues include, but they're not limited to, IPR proposals being submitted with one or more of the components missing. So they might be missing responses to the relevant preconditions, to specific common standards elements, or to the exhibits and elements that are used to demonstrate alignment to program standards. There might be broken links to evidence, and there could also be course matrices that are inaccessible or incomplete, among the other issues that are listed there, and those that are also not even listed on the page as well. The IPR team does want to take a moment to acknowledge that putting together an IPR proposal is not a simple undertaking. There are multiple components to this process, as I just mentioned. And if we compare this process to other accreditation activities, such as the ones that institutions undergo in the 7-year cycle, or to the initial institutional approval process, you'll see that by contrast in those other processes, there is documentation that's being submitted at specific times. So for institutions that are in the 7-year cycle, they respond to preconditions in years 1 and 4, to program review in fall of year 5, and then common standards in spring of year 5. Whereas in IPR, an institution is providing responses to all 3 of these components at one time. And we do also want to say that the evidence that is being submitted for IPR is similar, if not the same, to the evidence that is being provided in these other accreditation activities, with a few minor differences. Another thing that is of interest in this regard is that the IPR proposals, when they're submitted, they can only be submitted by institutions that are already in the 7-year accreditation cycle. So the assumption is that there is familiarity with the standards, but when we as a team receive incomplete or inaccessible IPR proposals, it makes us pause for a moment. And we have taken a moment to look at the different trends that we are seeing, and I'm going to be going over the trends momentarily. Okay. And we do want to be clear that when we receive an incomplete IPR proposal, as was stated earlier by my colleague Miranda, it does end up slowing the entire process down, because then we have to redirect our efforts to supporting the institutions and providing them the resources and guidance that they need to get their submissions ready to the point where they can be reviewed, which gives us as a team less time for the proposals that were complete or that were submitted complete, because that gives us less time to be able to find the review team that's needed to move that complete IPR proposal forward. That is ultimately our primary concern. With the volume and number of incomplete IPR proposals that we are seeing, it is slowing down the process for every institution that either has a proposal that's in the queue or is planning to submit one, and that was the impetus of writing this item. We just want to be able to kind of understand what we could do to help the field. In other words, help us help you, so that we're able to kind of get a sense of how to make this process function a little bit more smoothly. And we do want to take a moment to also identify other areas. So as I mentioned earlier, there are specific trends that we are noticing in these proposals. So at the bottom of page 2 and at the top of page 3, we discussed how we are noticing that some of these IPR proposals seem to be disconnected from the education unit itself. And although sometimes we would think that that happens when a program is housed outside of the education unit, what we have noticed is that sometimes even with preliminary teacher prep programs that are being proposed that are within the education unit, there still happens to be this disconnect. So when an institution wants to add that new ed prep program, we know that they want to have the system of support in order to ensure that the program is able to operate efficiently and successfully, and that's part of the reason why we have the documentation that we ask for through the IPR process. So when we see that disconnect there, it does end up raising questions on in our minds on that regard. So that's one trend that we're noticing. Another trend that we're noticing is that institutions are hiring outside consultants or outside individuals to write the IPR proposals for them. And that just makes us kind of wonder how familiar these individuals are with accreditation processes and with the terminology that we use. And granted, it is likely that these institutions, these outside individuals, they have to be working very closely with the institution who has hired them. But that does also raise questions about capacity issues. So there might be other perspectives out there from the field about the capacity issues, and we would love to definitely hear those. But that is a trend that we're noticing, that outside individuals are writing the IPR proposals. What often happens is that the IPR team actually receives emails from these outside individuals asking questions. And at times, the questions are those that could better be addressed by the institution themselves, or it stems from, again, that unfamiliarity with the language that we use in accreditation. And of course, the IPR team is more than happy to answer the questions that come to us, but it is a phenomenon that we wanted to acknowledge. We also wanted to take a moment to talk about the PK3 credential, because that is a part of the work that the IPR team is doing. We're providing support to those that are writing to this new credential. And since this is a new credential that has its own complexities, the IPR team has been in regular attendance at the ECE community circles and at the office hours as well, in order to address any IPR process questions that arise there. And in addition to the frequent meetings that we had that Miranda mentioned earlier, we also noticed that at the ECE office hours, there were institutions that were coming that were asking questions specific to the IPR proposal process, which was another main push for us to have our own separate IPR office hours. And we wanted to be able to, again, give that space so that programs and their institutional representatives can come to us and ask us questions about the proposal process. So that was a summary of the common issues and the themes we are noticing with IPR proposals and the different ways that we're trying to support institutions that are going through this process. And I will now turn this presentation over to my colleague Rosemary on the screen to discuss next steps.
Thank you so much, Poonam and Miranda. And for its part, the IPR team will continue with the strategies and structures that we've put into place, including holding the office hours with the expectation that institutions preparing a new program proposal will attend. We'll also continue to respond in a timely manner to inquiries and feedback from institutions, implement and refine the intake form, and engage in an ongoing review of our evidence submission instructions with the goal of revising them as necessary to make them more effective. We do plan to release a program sponsor alert, a PSA, with the hopes that it will emphasize the importance of submitting complete and accessible proposals and provide reminders and tools for institutions preparing proposals by bringing their attention to the resources available and the addition of the intake form to the IPR process. Our goal is to see that institutions submit complete proposals ready for review that will lead to effective educator preparation programs. For proposals that continue to fall short of this expectation, even with the added support, we've listed a few possible courses of action the committee might consider, including but not limited to replacing an IPR office hour once every 3 months with a quarterly IPR 101 webinar to review the steps in IPR, restructuring the process of IPR so that components of the proposal are submitted in stages, hosting IPR sessions at CCAC and other applicable conferences, deprioritizing incomplete and inaccessible proposals, and or even charging cost recovery fees for incomplete IPR proposals, and that might require a change in regulations. The IPR team believes in being proactive by providing institutions with the tools they need to complete successful submissions. However, we realize it may be necessary to consider some logical consequences in situations where a proposal demands excessive resources. So at this point, we'd like to take a moment to walk through the new intake form that institutions will receive and that will be included in the final IPR submission. The IPR team developed the intake form as a way to formalize those emails we found ourselves sending to institutions with very long lists of elements that needed to be addressed before we could send submissions to review teams. So please refer to the appendix beginning on page 4 of the item. This intake form will be completed by commission staff and is formatted in a manner similar to the other feedback forms used in IPR. It will include the institution's name, type of proposal, link to the submission, and the date of intake. The form you see here reflects one that has been partially completed to give you an idea of the type of feedback that institutions are going to receive. We've listed instructions both for staff reviewers and also to provide institutions with an understanding of our expectations. Staff will perform a preliminary review of each of the main sections of the submission: preconditions, common standards, and the exhibits and evidence. During this review, they'll check to see that required elements are present, accessible, and relevant, but will not be doing a deep dive into every single portion of the proposal. They'll use the tables on the form to note missing or inaccessible evidence, and then staff will indicate the status by marking one of 3 options. So option 1, ready for review. The submission appears to be complete and accessible. It will go to a peer review team. Option 2, minor updates needed. The submission is overall okay, but may have a few broken links or may be missing a minor element. The institution will need to correct and update the submission and notify the IPR team when they believe the proposal is ready for peer review. Option 3, incomplete, unable to review. The submission needs significant updates. If staff notices significant omissions or access issues, they will stop the intake and note issues up to that point on the table. Then institutions will be expected to double check the entire proposal before resubmitting it, not just the portion initially reviewed. These institutions will also be required to have a representative attend IPR office hours prior to resubmitting. This requirement is meant to ensure that opportunity for the representative to gain clarity on what is expected, how to address access issues, and to ask any other questions related to the process. Staff will review resubmissions as workflow allows, prioritizing complete proposals. If a submission continues to be incomplete or inaccessible, staff will note the issues, notify the institution, and the process will continue until the proposal is ready for peer review. So that's a little bit about our new form, and I'm going to now hand it back to Miranda to wrap up our item.
Thanks, Rosemary. So thus far, we've highlighted what we're seeing in IPR proposals that are being submitted. And, we want to acknowledge this, that 3 of us may be part of the IPR team, but the reality is that it's an effort undertaken by many individuals. Here at the Commission, I mentioned we have staff supporting us with the intake of forms, and we're meeting regularly with our administrators to discuss IPR topics and, all things IPR. Our fellow consultants review program-specific documentation when needed. They step in support for some lower incidence areas, and they attend meetings with us when we're meeting with institutions on program-specific questions. We're also thankful for our reviewers and acknowledge that many IPR proposals are reviewed by folks who are also doing program review, common standards, and site visits. Additionally, with the PK3 IPR proposals, we're seeing lots of the same reviewers come back, and so we're very appreciative and thankful to them and their willingness to review and provide feedback until program standards are met or aligned is a testament to their dedication to the process. And so we just want to acknowledge that this is a system. IPR is a process that affects many individuals, and so our hope is to make it a smooth and efficient process as we move forward. So now we've gone through some of what we're seeing in IPR proposals, and now we welcome a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. The very detailed, thorough report. Very much so. Ms. Sullivan.
I just want to add, and Sarah Solari is here at the table as well, as you have this discussion. We didn't want to hijack the IPR agenda item or blow it up into something gigantic, but I want to also add that we are seeing these same issues also in submissions that we are receiving for regular preconditions in years 1 and 4, and during program review submissions in year 5, and during common standards. It's a real problem, and it's sort of an all of a sudden thing. Like, the system was going along pretty well, but recently we're having a lot of trouble getting submissions from institutions that are complete, that actually respond to all the evidence, that have accessible links. So, and we have to evaluate these things to a certain extent before we can send them out to our review teams. And what they're doing with this intake form is commendable, but as an administrator, sometimes I worry that we're getting too close to telling institutions exactly what to give us, and that if they give us exactly that, their program will be approved, right? So it's a fine line between creating documents that say these are the submission requirements, and yes, we'll do office hours, and yes, we'll answer emails, and maybe even we'll do a 101. But getting down to this level of detail is not only time consuming for staff, and that's not really the main issue, right? We're here and we're happy to put in the time, but is it the best use of our time? And then what is the message that we're sending to our institutions? I don't know if Sarah wanted to add something too. Sorry.
Well, I would just caution. So, true story. True story. I don't know if you can hear me, but we had an institution who submitted their preconditions in year 4, and it took them until year 5, March of year 5, to actually submit their a solid set of preconditions that were acceptable. So year 5, March of year 5, meanwhile, they had submitted in year 5 their program review in October and submitted their common standards in March, and their site visit was in October, and it was a mess. Everything was a mess, right? But we knew that. We knew that because we had seen this through their precondition submission. And I think that staff needs time to kind of come up with a solution, that, because we knew that this institution, if they were having problems with the preconditions, which are legal things, and then they limp along and have a site visit that is probably horrific on many standards, right? And now here we are. I don't think it's acceptable. We have candidates out there being served or not. We don't know. And so I think staff needs to come up with something where we stop it, where we stop, there's some stop, somehow we intervene and come, help. So I don't know. I think staff needs time to kind of develop something. I was thinking, like, I've been talking with Cheryl and Aaron about things, but this is not okay. And because yes, there's time spent on this development, this document that they developed, but maybe time well spent, right? This is a problem, though.
Yep, and before Commissioner Davis, thank you both for bringing that to our attention. And we recognize that, Aaron, you made the comment about, well, you're happy to do the time, but yeah, you don't have time to do everything. And the more consistent the information is presented, and the more that the institutions actually provide what is useful, it helps staff from having to dig through everything, the weeds, to find out the information. And also, you mentioned the checklist. Having a checklist is almost like teaching to a test. If you do everything correctly here, you're going to pass. And it's not. It's, you want to see, how does a program meet the standards within their program itself? Yes, there are some standards that have to be met, but the standards don't tell them exactly what to do. The standards, this is what you need to meet. How do you meet it at your institution? So I think that's absolutely right, that they don't want to think that checking off certain boxes is going to satisfy things. And then Dr. Colombini, your comment about, are the students actually, the candidates, getting what they need? And it's spot on. So thank you all for the work. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about that. But Commissioner Davis, and then Member Crecia, Member McKee.
Kudos to staff again. You all do such a wonderful job, and these presentations are so eye-opening because I have no idea what you all do behind closed doors, but now I have a great idea of this whole process. I was like, wow, there's a lot that goes into this. I have a couple of suggestions for maybe how you can present this to the public in a way that might help. I mean, and this isn't official commissioner, telling you, giving you direction or something, but suggestions about, like, in an orientation process, if there's a webinar video that you all can put before you fill out this application, click on this link. This is what you need to do. And then here's a form that is a template for note taking or a note grabber, as opposed, sort of like taking Cornell notes, as opposed to you need to submit this in order to get approved, right? And you need to follow the standards because you're educators. You should know what standards are, and you should know how to follow them. You should know how to follow a rubric, these kinds of things in an orientation video. And when they're at different stages of the application process, let's say like year 5, year 4, that there's another video that says, okay, so don't forget these things. Here's some helpful tools to, filling this out. And it doesn't have to be more than like a, say, 5-minute video, but highlighting the big picture items that continuously seem to be missing. And it might be worth your time to just have a link in the application, if it's a digital application, to just go to a helpful video. And also some direction to possibly other proposals that have been accepted. I don't know if these are public documents, but some documents regionally or statewide that may have been accepted as far as programs who are coming online, especially with the P-3 credential, because that's kind of a new-ish landscape, and not that someone needs to copy and paste what someone else has done. They need to have some original work there, but because integrity is part of the process. But if we can just help people who seem to be deficient in this area, they don't seem to be filling out the form for whatever variety of reasons, and you may want to reach out, as you are assisting programs as they come online too. So, did you have challenges with finances that caused you with resources not to fill this out? Just trying to figure out what the gap is there, because if you're seeing it systemically, across the state, I would think that if people are not taking this process seriously, and they're not putting the resources in, the personnel, the funding that it takes for people to sit and meet to write these reports and submit them, that we can, as a commission, can only do so much. Staff-wise, you all are excellent, as Poonam has been praised a whole lot during this meeting cycle, that you all can only do so much. So the suggestion I would have is add some FAQs or some helpful linked videos of some sort that were available for folks prior to submission. And if they still submit incomplete applications, the draconian consequences of fees and all of those other things, put them right in place because they had the tools. There's no excuse at that point, because if the information is there and it's embedded in the application, there should be a penalty for that. And I'm not one for corporal punishment or penalties, but if you can only do so much, you all shouldn't have to extend your already thin resources to sort of kowtow to programs that don't follow directions. That's not fair to you all. And so meaningful dialogue with organizations, and I appreciate the office hours. That's a wonderful part of it, so that they can get questions answered. I'm hoping the office hours are for programs before they submit applications rather than afterwards, and then are coming back for assistance after they've been rejected or sent back because they were incomplete. But I will say that having a body of information beforehand is something that you can hold people accountable for. So if you all have that in place, there's no excuse at that point. So keep doing the excellent work that you all are doing, and do your best to, and again, like I was talking about the Wonder Woman bracelets, just keep deflecting because that's all you can do. I mean, you can't absorb all of the issues and problems that people throw your way, but you certainly can say, here is a resource that we have at the state level that you can look to, and we are free. Feel free to ask us any questions beyond that, but this is pretty straightforward. Watch our webinar, watch our video, read the FAQs, look at some of these past examples of successful programs that submitted applications in the correct fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Member Creasy.
I would just say that, probably being one of the problem children in the IPR process right now, I would just say it's not always the what, it's the how sometimes. And I can only speak for my experiences, with my own institution in terms of certain pieces of information that need to be candidate facing, for example. Now, sometimes it's kind of a struggle in the process because on the internal side, there are certain things that a program or an IHE cannot put into place until they've been approved because they have their own internal accountability issues in terms of what the university will let us do, let us post, applications, for an example. If we're going to have these online applications, we can't put that in place until it's in the catalog, and that is its own cycle. So I would just say, that's a big consideration. I know that's something that, we struggle with. I'm not sure what kind of a fix there is for that. Because when you try to provide, okay, here's the template of what we're going to do, but if it's something that we have to actually have in place and we can't do it. So, just those are some considerations, I would say. I mean, I do think that there is a certain level, though, of basic, okay, this, and this, which should be fairly clear. And I would like to hope that people know some of that, but and maybe we do have to do something, I like the intake form, but I do hesitate, like, what Aaron is saying in regards to the amount of time that's going to take. So I don't know. I mean, this is not as simple, I think, as, I think there's just a lot of complexity because, again, we're working with a variety of institutions who have a variety of internal structures and systems of accountability that may get in the way. And I mean, you could say, well, maybe they just don't belong in teacher ed, but I don't think that is fair, nor is that reasonable. So anyway, I would just like to add that to the conversation.
Just a follow-up comment, and I appreciate that because I don't have that university perspective that you do. Is there something on the IPR intake form that requires that those things are in place now, or those items are in place now, or are there things that you can put on there, promises for the future? Kind of like one of our presentations today. We saw promises for the future, but we didn't see things in action right now. Is there something on the form where I can say, to your point about putting online applications, we can do this, I don't know, immediately after approval, but we just can't do it at this moment because we haven't gone to the chancellor's office, for example, or the president's office and gotten approval through the Senate, the faculty senate, or whatever. Is there something like that in the process?
That's a great question. So one of the distinctions between IPR and the other accreditation activities is that we recognize that this is a program proposal. It's a program that's not yet operational. It's aspirational to be operational. So one of the reasons why we have a separate set of submission requirements, even though the evidence we're asking for is the same, is so we can put in the word draft. So they are allowed to provide draft documentation, and we recognize that it could absolutely change once the program is implemented, but we want to get a sense of where is this program starting to go going forward.
I'm sorry. I just want to say that, instructions have been that it's ready to go. You could enroll somebody tomorrow. So that's different than this is a draft. It's a little bit different.
We want as finalize the draft as possible, because that is right. That is the expectation that if it's ready to go, that it'd be, yeah.
again, that's a whole nother thing in terms of a university's accountability, because we can't put it in the catalog. We can't offer it until it's approved. So, and I mean, again, I'm speaking for my institution. That may not be the structure for everybody else's. But if, we're talking about some of the information that has to be candidate facing, that needs to be on the application, and we cannot put that application on because, again, enrolled, ready to go the day after it's approved means that application is pretty much live. And that's a distinction.
Ms. Sullivan, did you want to comment on that? I thought I saw you.
I just wanted to provide a couple possible areas for clarification, which maybe everybody understands, but I just want to, because I jumped in on their IPR thing and added the yes and program review and preconditions and common standards review. They are very different processes. For preconditions, program review, common standards review, these are all coming in from programs that are currently operational. We have a very specific set of evidence to be submitted. So there is a checklist. They are in the submission guidelines or submission requirements where we say you need to send us this, 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 and this. IPR does the same thing, but as I don't know why I was going to call you Haichu just now. I'm thinking about the commission meeting. As Poonam said just now and provided to community member Krisha, for IPR, these are programs that are not yet operational. So yes, some of what you're sending us is still a draft. And I'm hearing you, committee member Krisha, about the difficulty of providing what we want to see as front-facing drafts, but also acknowledging what Poonam was saying, which is just if it can be as complete a draft as possible. Basically, we have to be able to say, okay, if you put this into place tomorrow, it's acceptable. Or we're seeing there's some things missing on this, so it needs to, we wouldn't want to provide approval for a program and then find out later that let's say an intake form was completely modified and doesn't look like that at all. But yeah, so I just wanted to be clear. There are institutions could use the submission requirements as a checklist. I've provided this, I've provided that. And if they have questions about whether or not something they're providing is acceptable, again, we would just invite them to please come to office hours, or if they don't have time for that, send an email and ask before they send it, instead of sending it in and hoping that it's okay, and then we have to send it back, and then, it slows everything down.
Thank you for clarifying any additional comments.
May I address something else also that
Sure, yeah. Yes.
is circulating here?
Oh, yep.
We're kind of in a catch-22 situation because we are spending the time to check that these proposals are complete and accessible, because if we send them to reviewers and they're not, it slows things down even more. So we're trying to be proactive to make sure that when we send these proposals to our volunteer reviewers, that they're able to access the evidence and to do as complete a review as possible, because it does take a while to get all these reviewers together, to get them together on the same date, because they all have their own programs and work to do. And so part of what was happening is we were getting feedback from reviewers. Oh, well, we can't see, we don't see any evidence at all for these things. And then we would contact the program or the institution, and they would have to provide us the information. And thus that slows the whole thing down even more once it's in motion. And so we're trying to be proactive to make sure that these proposals are as complete as possible. And our feedback, as you'll see on the form, and one point I wanted to just emphasize is that if we start looking at this proposal and it's missing a lot of things, we stop. We don't go through the whole proposal, and we get back to the institution and say, hey, you've got a lot to work on here. Here are a few things we found, but you need to check your whole submission. And we're not scripting them with specifics of what exactly they have to show us as evidence. We refer them back to the evidence guide. And then we invite them to join us at office hours so that they can get more clarity. So I just wanted to contextualize that a little bit more, that if we don't do the preview or the intake, it comes back at us and it slows things down even more. So it's kind of, we're trying to find a balance.
Thank you for offering that, Dr. Wren. Appreciate it. We have 4 committee members in line to offer comments. Members McKee, Tchaikovsky, Taylor, and then Hallis. So, Member McKee.
And from being on the other side, and my perspective is going to similarly match what you guys shared earlier. When I first saw the intake form, my worry was another form for you guys to have to process, because that is more work. So I put my hat on. What was my experience when I went through the process? Because I did go through the process, and I was newer to the world of standards, so I didn't have a strong of an understanding back then in early 2020, late 2019. The process from my lens was extremely clear, and I actually went back to my emails. You both emailed me back within 1 day of a question. When I asked for a resource, you gave me Fresno. You gave me everything I needed within 1 day. And I went right now and double checked, was that, and it was both of you, Miranda and Poonam. So the process was extremely clear. And my worry was when I was looking at timelines, granted the pandemic happened, so I was delayed because of that piece. But if I am doing everything that I'm supposed to do, and I wasn't even that familiar, some of these people are familiar with process, right? So why would I be delayed 6 months? Like, I agree with somehow you have to go to the back end of the queue. If you were on the front end and you didn't do it, you kind of go to the back of the line and move forward. And that's just an analogy. I'm not sure about adding money on, but at least time, right? So with that, when it comes to process, like I remember my process, one of the things that was a little bit of a challenge, which matched what you shared, is like I had to provide, we had seminars in our program. I had to provide what those seminars and all those PowerPoints were for a program that's not even approved. That was a challenge. Like, I don't have an approved program, but I have to have all my orientation slide decks done and seminar slide decks done. So the fact that I had to present a fully implemented program when I don't even have an approved program, that's where the challenge, and it may not have been you, it may have been the program reviewers at that point. So I can't say that it came from CTC, but through program review, it's like, wow, this is a lot I have to create when I don't even know if I'm going to get approved. And so kind of with that piece is maybe along the process, along the way, something may have happened. And I loved what our commissioner had said about video tutorials. One thing that I realized has come out post-pandemic is that I wrote it down, there's this post-pandemic haste. And we see it sometimes in people don't read directions as much as they used to read directions. And so through the post-pandemic video tutorials, 3 to 5 minutes, we started doing in our program because people will watch a 3 to 5 minute video than trying to decipher text. So as much as along the ways, even if along the way the video link was directly in that step, we started doing it with our program, and it's amazing. People will watch a 3 to 5 minute video because it's linked right in that point of the directions. Oh, here's the screen share. Oh, here's where I need to go. And then the clarity is there. Creating those videos takes time, but the fruit is in afterwards, right? Like you have to water the tree and then it grows and then you're like, oh, I don't answer these questions anymore. With all that being said, you two don't stop what you're doing. You were extremely responsive. I appreciate all that you did. Again, more Poonam, but also Miranda, because you were there. And I thank you for that.
No, and I would just want to point out that it also depends upon what program you're doing the IPR for. So, because you're reminding me some of the, sometimes because, I may not be the sharpest tool in this box, but I do have some experience with these processes and these standards. And I would say that in some cases, the experience is definitely different depending upon what program we're talking about. So, that complexity, and that should kind of be considered. And maybe videos, and I know that they tried to do, a page and reviewers for this program and for a different program. But I will say I kind of fell into the trap. Well, okay, I was doing it the way that I usually know and that has worked. And then not necessarily, but again, getting caught up in the creation of a program that is not actually approved. And again, caught up in the situation where the university or the institution may not necessarily, you can't post anything and do anything until it's approved. So thank you. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Member Cretia. Co-Chair Tchaikovsky.
So I just two quick kind of observations. The video thing is groovy. Somebody mentioned Edpuzzle earlier. Checks for understanding. I mean, again, in terms of things that have come out of COVID, not a bad thing to do. Plant a couple questions in, strategic locations within those videos, and then people can make sure that they're not just, blindly watching something. But then it occurred to me, in at least one regard, the checking of links, that artificial intelligence could be a very handy tool, because I am sure there is a program that could be written to do a scan of somebody's materials, which could check for active links. It could check for a submission related to certain things. There are parameters that could be equated in scanning a file. I'm not a coder. I'm not a bot creator, but they're out there. And this technology that could absolutely reduce the time of a technical first review exists. So maybe there's an electronic platform that somebody could use rather than a form. Maybe there's some sort of, I'm sure that could exist, some sort of an app that somebody might use when they assemble their proposal that could be easily manipulated by an algorithm and generate a report on relative completeness. That first scan could be the thing that is consuming your time. And then you now have a lot more time for more qualitative examination of the contents of a submission. Yeah, kind of out of my league, but I know it's out there somewhere.
I just want to thank you for bringing up AI. I think that's a really fascinating idea, and I hope that the institutions that are listening to this are thinking about how they can use that before they send their submissions in to us as well, right? It's a useful tool for us, but it's a useful tool for them too, to try to find something that checks for completeness before they send it in. So, but thank you for the
because
AI.
there's a lot of business applications that do this already. I mean, this is project management, right? So it's not our collective gig right here, but the technology exists. And if it's used on both ends and it's the same thing, now we have seamless integration of this initiative. So I don't know, little research perhaps.
Well, good points. Thank you. Member Taylor?
Whew, so much to say. I could talk for the rest of the day on this. I'm going to try not to do that. To be brief, Miranda is a rock star as well. I've been through an experience with this as director of a unit. I ultimately was responsible for my institution's accreditation with CTC. I don't take that lightly. Artificial intelligence is great, but actual intelligence is far superior and more important. I think it is critical that some things that are critical here. One, this is complex. Absolutely. Yes. Member Crozier hit the nail on the head. It's really complex putting together these things. Yeah. True word. Where complexity exists, checklists are essential. We must not pull checklists out of this. We need powerful language in there that the checklist is where you begin, right? It is not where you end. That's authentic intelligence. Artificial intelligence can go off the rails there if it's not, if the algorithm isn't written carefully. But checklists are essential. I think examples are essential as well. Again, with strong language that do not copy the example presented by, I think people are smart enough to figure that out. I hope people are smart enough to figure that out. I think the examples are there. I certainly, when we were making a submission, we looked for examples. And then because my institution is a state institution, I set the expectation for all of my staff that everything we submitted would be publicly available as an example, and that our standard should be we submit nothing to CTC that we are not 100% committed to standing behind as an example of how it should be done. And I think if there's anyone listening to this from a state institution, if you do not have that standard, you should step down and somebody should replace you that has that expectation. Okay, trying to get off my soapbox and into reality here. I strongly agree with the notion that video tutorials on putting together a submission are profoundly helpful when you're making complex submissions. The combination of a good checklist, well-written checklist, strong language supporting how that checklist is operationalized with a tutorial, a video tutorial is brilliant. The creation of video tutorials. Everybody thinks they can make video tutorials after the pandemic. In my master's degree, I took classes in videography because I created an instructional video as my master's thesis. It was one of the hardest things I ever did. I kid you not, I mean, I literally spent days in an editing bay creating those videos. We should not expect staff at CTC to create instructional videotapes without the expectation that videographers will be hired to work in partnership with CTC staff. That is a hard thing. If we're expecting AI to be involved, we also need to make funds available to hire computer programmers. My son does some of that stuff. I know what's involved. We need to hire people with skill sets other than those we expect of CTC staff to create that. All of that, I think, would be a great idea. As I hear the presentation, I read the materials and try to think, how can I support CTC staff in this? I'm wondering if, given that we have a chronic shortage of teachers and credentialed administrators in the state, whether some of the grant money that has been allotted to increase the number of teachers and administrators available in our state, whether some of that could be used to support the process of training those much needed administrators as much needed teachers. If some of that grant money could be earmarked for in providing supports to program sponsors applying for accreditation to provide the programs that would solve the problem. Because grant money could be used to create videos, hire videographers. Grant money could be used to hire computer scientists to create artificial intelligence that would support the authentic, real intelligence behind these programs. Another comment, and then I'll draw to a close. The strong language with the to accompany the checklists can be used by people like Representative Kreischer, who had real challenges with this, had to go to her administration, and I understand entirely what she's talking about. Well, a draft doesn't cut it because I got to get this through academic senate. I got to get this past the dean. I got to make my provost understand what I'm talking about here. The strong language could include expectations, an understanding of the procedures that universities work with, but statements about an expectation that the university, in applying for accreditation, will need to may need to change some of its procedures, because accreditation comes with the expectation that red tape will be untied and retied in ways that support the process of applying for accreditation. I wanted to propose a new course recently at my own institution, but because we're going through semester conversion, no courses, you can't submit new courses. Not just this year, I couldn't submit one last year, and I can't submit one next year, which I find ridiculous, but it's the way it is. But if the course were required for accreditation, bam, it cuts through everything and it's immediately available. So I tried to make my course required for accreditation, but it didn't work. That's an example. I know that exists at my institution. I know my institution moves at a glacial pace in the review of things. But where it's required for education, for accreditation, it can go to the